Chapter 33. When Fu Yun carried the child back to the old house, Wenwan had already fallen asleep on her shoulder. She placed Wenwan on the bed and turned on the air conditioner. The temperature in the house quickly cooled down. Fu Yun lay beside Wenwan and covered herself with a blanket. She was not sleepy at all. She took out her phone and could not help but check on the production team. As she had not paid attention to it before, Fu Yun did not know who the guests were. She stayed in the flower garden all day and did not know about the news from the outside world in time. At this moment, she deliberately paid attention to it and realized that there was news about the production team everywhere, whether it was on Weibo or the live broadcast forum. The production team used the television station and the live broadcast platform in parallel. The live broadcast content of the day on the live broadcast platform would be uploaded 3 days later. The television station edited 2 hours of video every week. The rhythm and content were richer, and with some behind-the-scenes dialogue, it made it more interesting. Therefore, after the audience finished watching the live broadcast, they would watch the television station's program again. Today's live broadcast content was not completely uploaded online, but some clips were edited by netizens and circulated online. Fu Yun saw that there was no related news on the trending searches, so it might have been suppressed. However, she could still find some information by searching for keywords. Especially when she saw the edited video, Feng Shui Ruo approached Wenwan and was bitten by Wenwan and pushed down. She was even angrier. How could she not understand her son? He did not like people other than her to pinch his face. When others wanted to pinch his face, he would naturally reject them in a childish voice after speaking. Adults usually would not provoke children anymore. Some netizens' malicious comments made her even angrier, and they even attacked her. Fu Yun knew that those were Feng Shuiruo's fans. However, there were also a considerable number of netizens who spoke up for them. Both sides were arguing fiercely, and they were not at a disadvantage at all. Fu Yun looked at the netizens' IDs. Most of them were CU's fans. Fu Yun saw the clip of CU arguing with Feng Shuiruo, and her impression of CU became even better. She did not know why in this book world where everyone loved the female lead, there was CU who did not care about the female lead at all. However, because of this, her impression of CU became even better. While Fu Yunruo was searching for information on the internet, Xin Su also returned from the production crew's lodging. There were a lot of objections online about the accident that happened in the morning, especially about the immortals fighting. In order to settle the matter peacefully, the production team sent out a notice to the guests to have a meeting to see how they could achieve a win-win situation. However, CU did not appear until the meeting was over. Feng Shuiruo was the same. She used the excuse that she was not feeling well and stayed in her room. It was obvious that both parties' attitudes were firm. Feng Shuiruo was humiliated and was even forced to apologize. How could Feng Shuiruo's manager, Sister One, allow her own artist to suffer? She wanted the production team to give her an explanation. CU did not want to appear, so he could only contact his manager. His manager's attitude was also very firm. In short, he felt that his artist did not do anything wrong. There was no way he would apologize. CU could do whatever he wanted. The production team was speechless. They knew that the two companies did not get along well, but they did not expect it to be to this extent. There was a topic of discussion, but the production team could not control it. Feng Shui's entertainment company and the capital behind it started to put pressure on the production team. CU's company, Apple Entertainment, also put pressure on the production team. The production team was in a difficult position, so they could only mediate. They could not afford to offend Feng Shui's backer, and they could not afford to offend the entertainment giant, Apple Entertainment. And the bigger crisis was whether their production team could continue filming or not. That was also a problem. After they clashed with the locals, it was obvious that the villagers' enthusiasm for them had died down, especially in Shanghe Village and Xiahe Village. If CU had not stood on the side of the villagers, they might have all been chased away. Although remote areas were remote and many villagers were xenophobic, there was also an advantage. They were very united. Offending one person was equivalent to offending the entire village, or even several villages. The production team's staff and permanent guests could not help but feel a little resentful. Why did Feng Shui provoke a child for no reason? He was already an adult, but he was still arguing with a child? What did a 3- or 4-year-old child know? Moreover, This child was quite cute. Siyu knew that he was a public figure and his every move was watched, but he still spoke without thinking. The production team decided to ignore the two companies for now. They would wait until the fight was over and see which side would win. The most important thing now was to send the gifts as an apology. The production team's staff quickly bought the things and sent gifts to each family. After receiving the villagers' promise that they would not pursue the matter was settled. They gave one the most gifts as an apology. Not only were there 2 cans of milk powder worth a few hundred yuan, but there was also a pile of toys and a big bag of candy and fruits. These were all sent to the Mei family. Su looked at the pile of gifts on the table and scratched the back of his head. Then he went upstairs and knocked on Siyu's door. Siyu's handsome face was expressionless. He walked out and sat on the sofa in the living room. What's wrong? Su sat on the sofa on the right side of the wall and spoke to Siyu. Brother Yu, your company will protect you, right? There was also a wooden sofa in the living room on the second floor and a glass coffee table in front of the sofa. Ever since Siyu and Su had moved to the second floor, there was always a clean cup and a pot of tea. Siyu poured 2 cups of tea and pushed 1 cup in front of Su. He slowly picked up the cup and took 2 sips. The tea was not expensive. It was just crudely stir-fried tea leaves, but it had its own unique flavor. Su took a few sips absent-mindedly. He was personally biased towards Brother Yu. Furthermore, the child who had been bullied was a child that he liked very much. However, he did not have much say in the production team. He saw that most of them were unhappy with Siyu. Most of them were on Feng Shui's side, so he felt stifled. In the past, he had liked Feng Shui very much. He felt that she was kind and beautiful. Her every frown and smile was likable. However, he now felt that Feng Shui was not as pure and kind as she seemed. Su was really worried about Siyu's situation. Although Siyu was an S-lister, he did not put on airs at all. He treated him like a spring breeze and took care of him like a younger brother. Siyu's only disadvantage was that he did not have a strong background. Although he had Apple Entertainment, if the company did not protect him one day, he would be in danger. Especially since Siyu did not have his own studio. He was an artist under Apple Entertainment. Siyu glanced at him. Seeing that he was worried, he said confidently, "Don't worry. I'll be fine." Apple Entertainment would not dare not protect him. Su looked at him enviously. Was this the confidence of a superstar? If he offended someone, the company would probably give up on him after weighing the pros and cons. When would he be able to stand at such a high position? What did the production team say? Siyu asked. He knew that they had been in a meeting for half a day, but he was not in the mood to listen. It was nothing more than how to control the public opinion and resolve this matter perfectly. Su briefly explained the attitude of the production team. As for the attitude of the others, he was careful not to say anything. He did not want to sound like he was tattling behind their backs. Siyu nodded as he listened. His expression was still calm. Su was affected by his attitude and felt less anxious. Siyu looked at the time and muttered to himself, "She should have slept enough. She should be awake by now, right?" Adults usually took a light nap for 20 to 30 minutes. If they slept too much, they would feel dizzy and tired. Children would take a longer nap, perhaps 1 to 2 hours. It had been 2 hours since the little girl went to sleep. She should be awake by now, right? Huh. Su did not understand what Siyu had said for a moment. Siyu asked, "How long do children usually take an afternoon nap?" Su was unsure. An hour? 2 hours? Siyu nodded and did not say anything. Then, he stood up and walked downstairs. Su was confused and followed him downstairs. Aunt May was doing housework in the yard. Siyu greeted her and then asked very naturally, "Should I send these gifts from the production crew to Wanwen's family?" Aunt May nodded without hesitation. Of course. She would not be greedy for Wanwen's things. These were all things that Wanwen deserved. She put down the dustpan in her hand and wiped her hands on her apron as she walked over. Wanwen and Ruoruo should be awake by now. Let's send them over now. Siyu said, "Let me do it. These things are heavy." Yes, let us do the heavy work. Su appeared from behind Siyu. He patted his chest and promised. Then, he went to pick up the bags on the table. Aunt May was happy to see the 2 young men so enthusiastic. I'll leave it to you then. Although what had happened today had affected her impression of the TV station's celebrities, she did not have any opinions about the two young men living in her house. Exine Sue smiled. Of course, of course. Siyu turned to look at Exine Sue's silly smile. She snorted in her heart and looked at him with disdain. However, she did not say anything. She carried the other bags and prepared to leave. Aunt May stood at the entrance of the courtyard and gave them directions. Go straight down this road. Do you see that old house with high walls? Exine Sue followed beside Siyu and could not help but ask, Brother Yu, have you seen Wenwen's mother? Exine Sue thought that if she could give birth to such an exquisite and cute child like Wenwen, she should be quite good-looking. Siyu did not say anything. Exine Sue did not need to hear the answer, so he did not care. The old house was very close to the May family's house. The two of them were tall and had long legs. They arrived in a short while. Siyu stood in front of the courtyard door. For the first time in his life, he felt a sense of trepidation as he approached home. Exine Sue did not know about Siyu's inner turmoil. Seeing that he did not knock, he stepped forward and knocked on the door. He even shouted inside, Is anyone home? Fu Yun was playing with her son on the bed. She was originally reading the news on the internet on her phone. When she saw that she was sleepy, she closed her eyes. Then, she was woken up by Wenwen, who was full of energy after a good night's sleep. Wenwen's little face was red. When Fu Yun poked her waist, she twisted her little body and quickly turned over. She lay down and laughed happily. When they heard a sound outside, the mother and son stopped. Wenwen pricked up her ears and listened to the sound. Then, she said to Fu Yun in a childish voice, It's Uncle Sue. Exine Sue? Fu Yun had just checked the news of the program and had an impression of the celebrity who was Siyu's partner. She hurriedly got out of bed and quickly tidied herself up. She tied up her messy hair again. Then, she led Wenwen, who had already slipped out of bed and put on her shoes, out to open the door. Outside the door stood two men with different styles. Mr. Yu. Then, they looked at Exine Sue. Hello. Fu Yun felt that calling him Mr. C did not sound good, so she thought for a moment and called him Mr. Yu. Seeing the big and small bags in their hands, she asked curiously, What are you doing? Siyu simply said, It's an apology from the program team. Fu Yun did not want to accept it when she heard that it was from the program team. However, her own Wenwen had suffered. If she did not accept it, she would be at a disadvantage. She only felt uncomfortable in her heart. When Exine Sue saw the woman who came to open the door, his eyes lit up. The woman in front of him was like a lotus flower. Even if she was wearing an ordinary t-shirt and casual pants, it could not hide her beauty. Exine Sue said warmly, Hello, you're Wenwen's sister, right? We're here to give the program team an apology. I'm really sorry that Wenwen has suffered. Exine Sue spoke sincerely. Fu Yun did not want to throw a tantrum. She knew that it had nothing to do with them, so she did not hold any grudges. She stepped aside and invited them into the house. You're welcome. I'm Wenwen's mother. Exine Sue widened his eyes in surprise. Really? I really can't believe it. You look like a 17 or 18-year-old university student. Fu Yun could not help but laugh. Being praised for being young always made her feel good. Although she was indeed young, she had given birth early. Sister, I'll call you sister. My name is Exine Sue. You can call me Little Exine or Little Sue. I'm 22 years old this year. Siyu's attention was originally on Wenwen. However, when she saw Exine Sue and Fu Yun chatting happily, she felt a little strange. This strange feeling might have stemmed from the fact that she was the mother of her son. Siyu could not help but cough lightly. When she saw Fu Yun looking over, she said calmly, Take a look and see if you're satisfied with these things. If you're not, I'll get the program team to send more over. Siyu also took a look. When she saw that they were low-quality toys bought in bulk from a convenience store, she could not help but frown. She thought unhappily that the program team was too perfunctory. How could they give these things away? Fu Yun did not have any expectations for these things. She only said politely, It's okay. The program team is very considerate. Wenwen also came over to take a look. When she saw the toys that he had stopped playing with, she immediately looked away in disinterest. He had a lot of such toys at the flower bed and at his house here. He had already piled them up and stopped playing with them. Fuyan put away the milk powder and toys. She was prepared to give them to the children in the village as a favor. She took out the apples and grapes to wash and plate to serve the guests. Exine Su was very enthusiastic and fought to wash them. He even praised Fuyan. "Your yard is so beautiful. Those flowers are so beautiful. I've been in the village for so long, and I like your yard the most. It's so poetic." "It's nothing. I just took care of it casually," Wenwen squatted at the door. When she saw Exine Su's strangely enthusiastic attitude towards his mother, she immediately sized him up. Uncle Su couldn't be thinking of wooing his mother, right? Wenwen shook her head. Uncle Su was younger than her mother. It was not suitable. Her mother was suitable to be pampered, not pampered. It was enough for her mother to pamper him alone. Then, she saw Siyu squatting beside him. He still looked very tall. Wenwen blinked and tilted her head. "Uncle Yu?" Why was she looking at him like that? Siyu was carefully sizing up Wenwen's appearance. A son resembled his mother. Wenwen's facial features were 70 to 80% similar to Fu Yun's. But after careful observation, he also looked a little like him. His nose was as tall and straight as the Si family's. It was just that he was still young and looked round and cute, so it was not obvious. When he grew up, they would resemble each other. Siyu reached out and pinched the bulging baby fat on his face. It was soft, tender, and smooth. Then, his pair of peach blossom eyes that looked like Fu Yun's became even rounder. Siyu thought to himself, this brat actually didn't look like him. The men in the Si family basically looked like their fathers. His genes actually couldn't beat Fu Yun's? Wenwen covered his chubby face and glared at Siyu for a long time. Then, he stood up and ran towards Fu Yun's legs with his short legs. Fu Yun lowered her head. "What's wrong, baby?" Wenwen complained, "Mother, Uncle Yu pinched my face." Fu Yun immediately turned her head and said politely, "Mr. Yu, Wenwen doesn't like people pinching his face." Siyu's expression froze for a moment. Then, he stood up calmly. "I saw some dust on Wenwen's face, so I touched it." He paused and apologized sincerely. "Since Wenwen doesn't like it, I'll be more careful next time." Wenwen's eyes widened. He obviously pinched his face. How could he lie? Fu Yun was stunned for a moment. She looked at Wenwen and then at Siyu. She inexplicably saw the grievance in Siyu's calm expression. Perhaps Wenwen had misunderstood. She knew it. How could the great best actor pinch a child's face on purpose? Hence, she said apologetically, "Sorry, I misunderstood." Wenwen held his chubby face and couldn't help but doubt himself. Could it be that Siyu really didn't pinch him, but helped him wipe away the dust? So he only touched his face and he misunderstood? The more Wenwen thought about it, the more he felt that this was the case. Although his idol might have some bad taste, he definitely wouldn't lie. He ran in front of Siyu and looked up. He said guiltily to Siyu, "I'm sorry, Uncle Yu. I misunderstood you." Siyu said in all seriousness, "Yes, it's all right." However, he was thinking in his heart that he was still so silly. He didn't inherit the shrewdness of the Si family at all. Siyu silently glanced at Fu Yun. This woman didn't inherit the good things, but instead, she inherited all the bad things. With such a silly personality, even a woman could bully him. How could he compete with those old foxes in the business world in the future? He pondered about the heavy responsibility of educating his son. Perhaps he had to work harder to accumulate more family assets. Otherwise, the family assets wouldn't be enough for him to be cheated. No matter what, he had to ensure his son's wealth for the rest of his life. As a newly appointed father, Siyu expressed that he was very worried. Fu Yun asked the two of them to eat fruits. Then, she tore the grape skin and fed Wenwen the grape flesh. Fu Yun saw that Wenwen wasn't spitting out the seeds. Don't always chew and swallow the seeds. Be careful that you don't grow grapes in your stomach. Fu Yun didn't know where Wenwen's habit came from. Would the grape seeds taste good if they were eaten together? She wasn't used to eating the seeds. Siyu, who was eating the grapes absent-mindedly without spitting out the seeds, was speechless. Wenwen said proudly, "No way. Grapes won't grow in my stomach." These words could only deceive a 3-year-old child. He was a 4-year-old child. He wouldn't believe such childish words. Grape seeds don't taste good. If Wenwen was an adult, Fu Yun wouldn't care if he spat out the seeds. However, he was still a child. His digestive system was more fragile. Fu Yun was worried that he wouldn't be able to digest it well. It's delicious. Fu Yun had no choice but to take the seeds and feed them to the grape flesh. Wen shook his head unhappily. He ate with his small mouth and didn't forget to protest. I want to eat the seeds. No. Mommy, you're bad. Siyu watched the mother and son bicker happily. He looked at Wen and felt satisfied. Yes, she was like him in this aspect. She ate grapes without spitting out the seeds. They chatted as they ate fruits. Everyone was more familiar with each other. They spoke more casually and their relationship instantly improved. After eating the fruits, they played in the courtyard. The environment here was better and there was more space. Wen couldn't sit still in the house. His hand was injured. Fu Yun was worried about letting him go out to play, so she kept him in the courtyard. Xian Su and Wen were watering the flowers at this time. Wen's hand was still bandaged. Hence, he instructed seriously in his childish voice. Xian Su listened to his instructions and watered the flowers. Fu Yun didn't stop them and let them play. Fu Yun saw that the two of them didn't show any signs of leaving. She couldn't help but ask Siyu, "Don't you have to film the show in the afternoon?" "No, we'll continue tomorrow." Today's storm hadn't been completely suppressed. Furthermore, if Feng Shui said that she wasn't feeling well and needed to rest, could they force her to continue filming? Siyu crossed his arms and leaned casually against the door. He was extremely charming and didn't need to be retouched. He turned his head to look at Fu Yun and said casually, "Haven't you thought of finding a father for Wen?" Fu Yun knew that Siyu liked Wen, so it was normal for her to be concerned about him. "Hence," she said graciously, "I won't consider it for the time being. If Wen is happier now, I won't remarry." Fu Yun could also sense his rejection of the word father. She thought that Wen would be curious as to why other children had fathers when he grew up. She thought of many reasons for this, but none of them were useful. Wen didn't even like having one more person in the house. Remarry? Siyu almost choked. The corner of his mouth twitched. I mean, the child's biological father. Haven't you thought about what you'll do if the child's biological father comes and fights with you for custody? Siyu really did have this idea at the beginning, so he directly laid his cards on the table with Fu Yun. He knew that if he really wanted to fight for custody, Fu Yun wouldn't have any chance of winning. However, seeing how the mother and son interacted with each other and relied on each other so deeply, he could imagine that if he really forced Wen to leave Fu Yun's side, Wen would definitely reject or even hate him as a father. He still remembered that Wen hated his father, whom he had never met. This was the most disadvantageous method, so Siyu dispelled this idea. However, Siyu, who had always thought of every possibility, didn't know what to do for the first time. In the end, he could only cultivate his relationship with the child like he was doing now and take one step at a time. When Fu Yun heard this, she waved her hand and said, "How can that be? He died a long time ago. How can he climb out of his grave and snatch the child from me?" She thought that since she didn't see what that person looked like, that person must be the same. Besides, Wen looked so much like her and didn't look like anyone else at all. As long as they didn't do a DNA test, how could they find that man? Of course, she couldn't say the truth. She could only say this. The dead Siyu. Ha! A woman full of lies. Chapter 34. Fu Yun Ruo brought her child to stay in the village at night. She never refused her child's request. Of course, she was not picky about food. What's more, when Wen's little hand was injured, Fu Yun Ruo let him sleep here if he wanted to. At night, she bathed him and changed his dressing. When she saw the terrible bruise, she felt even more distressed. After the two of them were done, they enjoyed the night breeze in the courtyard. Fu Yun Ruo sat on a small stool and looked at her phone. When Ruo leaned against her and squeezed his little head over to look, Fu Yun Ruo logged into the back end and sent a notice that her live broadcast would be suspended tomorrow and would be broadcast the day after tomorrow. Tonight was the time for the release of Lu Ji's new album MV. The most important and beautiful scene in it was borrowed from her video, so she would be tagged in the thank you list. She would also forward it immediately, and the studio would also forward it. So logically speaking, it should be better to do a live broadcast the next day. However, Wenwen Ruo was the most important. Fuyun Ruo felt that her fame was enough. She would let nature take its course. Wenwen Ruo saw the number of followers Fuyun Ruo had and nodded in satisfaction. Not bad. It had reached half of the number of fans he had at his peak. Fuyun Ruo looked at his serious expression and couldn't help rubbing his little head. She teased, "Can you understand it?" Wenwen Ruo nodded and said proudly, "Of course. Don't underestimate him. Among his peers, he was a genius. He knew more than primary school students." "You're so mischievous." Fuyun Ruo scratched his nose. The album was released at 9 o'clock. It was only 7 o'clock now. It was still very early. Fuyun Ruo thought for a while, then took her son out for a walk. She specially set an alarm at 8:45. When she came back, she would be able to log in and forward it as soon as possible. The villagers loved to gather at night on the village's ground. It was spacious, there were trees, and there were no buildings around. The cool night wind blew, taking away the summer heat. In this hot summer, it was a kind of enjoyment. The villagers would bring along their small stools, wave their palm leaf fans, and talk loudly about family matters and gossip in and out of the village. When Fu Yun and her son arrived, it was already very lively. She could hear the loud voices of her uncles and aunts from afar. She didn't know what they were talking about, but they were laughing heartily. The villagers greeted them happily when they saw them. "Roro, Wenwen, you're here." They exchanged pleasantries with Wenwen and were also very concerned about Wenwen's injury. Wenwen was surrounded by a group of elders who were of the same generation as his grandparents. They were all concerned about his well-being. His crisp and clear voice was cute and adorable, and it was indescribably delightful to hear. "Sister Yun Ruo." Xian Su stood up and quickly greeted her. "Come and sit down." Fu Yun was looking at her son with a smile on her face. When she heard Xian Su's voice, she turned her head and saw Xian Su standing in the crowd and waving at her. When Fu Yun looked over, she saw Siyu sitting in the middle of a group of uncles and aunties. These two people were exceptionally conspicuous in the crowd. She walked over, and Xian Su hurriedly gave the small stool to Fu Yun. Then, he squeezed onto a stool with Siyu. "Sister Yun Ruo, you brought the child out for a walk?" "Yes," Fu Yun replied. "I didn't expect you to be here too." Fu Yun didn't expect to see these two celebrities so down to earth. They even came to participate in the village's large-scale gossip event. It seemed like they were doing well. Xian Su smiled and said, "It's quite interesting." This was a lifestyle that he had never experienced in his previous 22 years of life. He had never met a group of people like this in his life. A group of people carried small stools and chatted as though they were having a meeting. When the event ended, they carried the stools back to their homes. After Xian Su participated on the first day, he felt that it was very novel. Every night, he dragged Siyu over. If Fu Yun couldn't help but glance at Siyu, Xian Su could still understand. After all, he was still young and was a little childish. However, when Fu Yun saw Siyu being surrounded by a group of uncles and aunties, she felt like laughing for some reason. When finally broke through the layers of concern and came to Fu Yun's side, his small body leaned against Fu Yun's, and he first called out to his mother. Then, he greeted Siyu and Xian Su. The villagers quickly changed the topic to the family matters in and out of the village. Xian Su asked curiously, "Sister Yun Ruo, I didn't see you guys coming before. Do you not live in the village often?" "Yes, I work at another place. I live there more often. It's more convenient," Fu Yun said. Originally, she felt that other than when it was raining and cold, she would live in the village with her son. However, it was indeed inconvenient to go back and forth every day. Hence, it became like this. She would return to the village once every 7 or 10 days. Xian Su said, Oh, that's really tough." "It's not tough. It's okay. Uncle Wu takes good care of me." Siyu listened to them casually. Fu Yun was the eldest daughter of the Fu family. How could she be reduced to working in such a small place to earn living expenses? He subconsciously frowned. She was being bullied too badly. Wenwen stood at the side. His big watery eyes looked at Xian Su from time to time. Once again, he felt that he wanted to be his stepfather. He walked over to Siyu's side with his short legs. He held onto his knees and tried to tiptoe to whisper to him. However, He was too short. Even if he stretched his body, he could not reach him. Siyu carried the child. When stepped on his thigh, Siyu lowered his head and cooperated. When hugged Siyu's neck and whispered in his ear, "Uncle Yu, does Uncle Su want to be my stepfather?" Siyu, he immediately looked over. His gaze was sharp and full of criticism. Him? He wanted to be his son's stepfather? What was he thinking? Siyu said with certainty, no. Wenwen immediately felt relieved. He did not want to have another person in the family to compete with him for favor. Xian Su and Fu Yun Ruo were chatting happily, but suddenly, a chill rose from his tailbone, and he immediately shivered. Xian Su touched his back. Why did he suddenly feel cold? He turned his head and happened to meet a pair of deep eyes. Xian Su quivered and immediately sat upright. What's wrong? He unconsciously stuttered and felt an inexplicable pressure. Fu Yun also looked over. When she saw her son and Siyu hugging so intimately, she thought to herself that she did not expect her son to like Siyu so much. This was the first time she saw Wenwen take the initiative to get close to someone other than her. Even Uncle Gua, Uncle Mei, and Aunt Mei. Wenwen rarely took the initiative to get close to someone other than her. She felt a little jealous. When will your show end? Fu Yun asked Siyu. She only knew that they would be filming for about half a month. She was not sure when they would be leaving. Siyu said lightly, 10 more days. Xian Su secretly calculated. That's right. They would be leaving in 10 days. When he did not see Sister Yun Ruo and Wenwen, he suddenly felt reluctant. When Wenwen heard this, she also felt reluctant. They still had 10 more days. Fu Yun smiled and said, then I'll see when it's convenient for you. I'll treat you to a meal to thank you for liking and taking care of Wenwen. Fu Yun did not have anything to repay them. She only wanted to treat them to a meal. When the time came, she would invite Uncle Mei, Aunt Mei, and Uncle Gua. Everyone would be lively, and it would not be a waste of their fate to know each other. Fu Yun knew in her heart that their interactions were limited to this. After all, they were not people from the same world. Xian Su's eyes suddenly lit up and he agreed. Okay, then it's settled. You can set the time and let me know a day in advance. At this moment, her phone suddenly rang. Fu Yun took out her phone and saw that it was time. She turned off the alarm and stood up. I should go back. Wenwen immediately jumped down from Siyu's arms and walked towards Fu Yun. Siyu was not used to the sudden departure of the soft little heater in his arms. He stood up. Xian Su, who was beside him, looked puzzled and did not react. Siyu said, we should go back too? Yes. Xian Su hurriedly stood up and walked out of the crowd with Siyu. They greeted the villagers and left. Fu Yun Ruo and her son were going the same way as Siyu, so they walked together. Wenwen skipped along the path without a care in the world. Siyu and Fu Yun walked together. They were not far from each other. She looked at him puzzledly. She felt that he did not seem to want to talk tonight and was not in a good mood. However, they were not close after all, so she was embarrassed to ask too much. Siyu indeed did not feel like talking. When he saw Fu Yun, he thought of himself, who was already dead in the eyes of the mother and son. This made him depressed. They had already passed by Aunt Mei's door. Fu Yun saw that Siyu was still following her and looked puzzled. Siyu said plainly, I'll send you to your door. Xian Su, who was about to enter the house, heard Siyu's words. He slapped his head and turned back. Yes, we should send Sister and Wenwen to their door. No need. It's just a few steps away. We'll be there soon. Fu Yun did not expect that she would receive such treatment and refused repeatedly. They had walked this path many times and were already familiar with it. There was no need for them to do this. However, since the two of them insisted on sending them, Fu Yun could only let them do it. When they reached their door, Fu Yun and Wenwen said good night to them but did not invite them in. It was late at night and they were orphans and widows, so it was not convenient. Siyu stood at the door and instructed, close the door. Fu Yun nodded. Wenwen poked her head out from behind Fu Yun and waved her chubby little paws. Uncle Yu, good night. Uncle Su, good night. Siyu and Xian Su responded and watched the door close. They only turned to leave after hearing that they had safely returned to their house. Fu Yun closed the door and held Wenwen's hand as they entered the house. She immediately logged into her account on her phone. It was 2 minutes to 9 o'clock sharp. Fortunately, she made it in time. Wen jumped up and down at the side. Mom, I want to watch it too. I want to watch it too. Fu Yun had no choice but to agree. She sat down and hugged Wen in her arms. The two of them watched it together. Fu Yun saw that it was 9 o'clock sharp. Lu Ji's Weibo account and the forums account were the first to publicize the new MV. She immediately switched between the two accounts. In less than 2 minutes, hashtag Lu Ji's MV hashtag S trending topic ranking rapidly rose to the top of the trending topic. The topic immediately exploded. Although it was because of the studio's publicity, it could be seen that it was very popular. It was Fu Yun's first time watching the MV. The image was beautiful, and there was also the charming voice of the Queen of Heaven, Lu Ji. The effect was very good. Fu Yun couldn't help but listen to it 3 times. She listened to the song once, watched the story of the MV once, and listened to it while watching. It was really a feast for the ears. It's so nice. Fu Yun couldn't help but praise. Wen heard this and pointed at the screen. It's nice. He was talking about the part of the video that Fu Yun produced. Fu Yun smiled. In Wen's eyes, she was very good. She kissed his little face. Wen immediately covered his little face. He had already grown up, but his mother still loved to kiss him. It was too embarrassing. Fu Yun looked at the comments for a while. Basically, they were all praises. She felt relieved. Then, she put her phone aside and went out to get some water. She was ready to wipe her hands and feet and sleep. On the other hand, after Siyu returned to the Mei family's house, he didn't stay idle in his room. His subordinate was very efficient. Soon, he found the information about Fu Yun for the past 4 years and sent it over. After Siyu finished reading it, he felt a little uneasy. However, he quickly suppressed this strange feeling. Buy me some toys that 3 or 4-year-old boys like to play with and send them over. Siyu thought of the pile of toys that the production team had sent and thought that his son was worthy of the best.
Yes.
Also, custom make more than 10 sets of children's clothes. Siyu thought of the children's clothes. He could tell that Fu Yun was very attentive to the children. The designs were ordinary, but the materials used were not cheap. However, it couldn't be compared to custom-made children's clothes. Siyu hesitated for a moment. Also, custom-make some clothes for Fu Yun, as well as bags, shoes, and cosmetics. He thought that he wasn't trying to curry favor with this woman. He was just trying to build a good relationship with her. After all, she was his son's mother. He couldn't be too shabby. If Feng Shui's woman was still here, they might meet again. Although Feng Shui's appearance and temperament were completely superior to that woman's, he didn't mind crushing her in terms of external appearance. His son's mother deserved the best. Siyu thought about it and felt that it was inappropriate. Then, he changed his mind. Forget it. Just send the children's clothes over. Forget about the woman's clothes. In such a remote place, people who didn't need to wear fancy clothes would attract attention. Furthermore, if he sent these things for no reason, they would definitely not accept them. Just do it first. You don't have to send them over. After Siyu gave his instructions, he hung up the phone. Yes. In a luxurious office, a young man in a suit and leather shoes put down his phone with a strange look on his face. The man beside him, who was also in a suit and leather shoes, saw this and asked, "Boss, do you have any other instructions?" Yes. He nodded and then said to his partner strangely, "We're going to have a wife." What do you mean? The man said slowly, "Just now, because of a woman, boss changed the order 3 times, just to give her clothes, jewelry, and cosmetics." He couldn't help but look at the neon lights in the night sky outside the floor-to-ceiling windows. He wondered if the sun would rise from the west tomorrow. His partner instantly understood. You're going to have a wife soon. Their boss, who had always been decisive, was acting strangely because of such a small matter. This meant that the woman had a special place in their boss's heart. They had worked for their boss for so long, but they had never seen him personally say that he wanted to give a woman these things. Siyu didn't know that his subordinate had guessed so much. He had just hung up the phone when his manager, Yuan Xin, called him. "What's the matter?" Siyu asked. "I want to remind you that the Chang family is also involved. They want to pressure the company to deal with you." Siyu frowned. His personal affairs were a mess, and he didn't have the time to care about this. Do as you deem fit. Yuan Xian complained. You're so free. They were so busy that they couldn't sleep well. Siyu said, I'm not free. He was very busy. Yuan Xian asked suspiciously, You didn't cause me any trouble, did you? Siyu said casually, How could I cause you any trouble? Why didn't Yuan Xian believe him? The company's public relations department was so busy that they were still working overtime. Wasn't he the one who had caused the trouble? Yuan Xian was worried. I'll go over in 2 days. He had to watch over it personally. Siyu ignored him. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something and asked, What about the Fu family? What's the situation now? The Fu family? Yuan Xian naturally paid attention to them. After all, they were Feng Shui's backer. They haven't done anything yet. Don't worry, I've asked someone to keep an eye on them. Siyu replied, Keep an eye on the Fu family. If there's anything strange, tell me. Okay. Yuan Xian hung up the phone. He was a little suspicious. Why did he feel that Siyu was paying too much attention to the Fu family? At this moment, someone called him. Yuan Xian responded and left. He must be thinking too much. The next day was a good day. Fu Yun didn't have to go to the flower bed, so she changed into a dress. She wore a retro long dress. Her long hair was braided, and the braid fell diagonally to the left of her chest. Because of work, Fu Yun never wore a dress at the flower bed. She always wore jeans and casual pants. She only wore a dress when she was in the village. Every time when one saw Fu Yun wearing a dress, her eyes would sparkle. She would praise her sweetly. Mommy is so beautiful. Fu Yun also praised. One is also handsome today. Fu Yun made one wear denim shorts with suspenders and a white short-sleeved shirt. She looked exceptionally handsome. Of course, when one raised her head proudly, it's because I have such a beautiful mommy that I can give birth to such a handsome baby. Yes, that's right. The mother and son laughed and flattered each other. They were very happy. At this moment, a few children ran over. They leaned against the door mysteriously and shouted, Sister Ruoruo, Sister Ruoruo. Fu Yun heard the commotion and walked out. What's the matter? She saw that only Dali, Dunzi, and a few older children had come. Dali whispered, Sister Ruoruo, let's take you somewhere. Where are we going? Fu Yun saw that the children were acting mysteriously and was a little curious. Wen ran over. I want to go too. Dunzi looked at Wen's small body and felt a little awkward. However, looking at his big, watery eyes, they couldn't say no. But the mountain roads weren't easy to walk on. Sister Ruoruo, bring a basket. Fu Yun didn't know what these children wanted to do, but she still went to the kitchen to get an exquisite bamboo basket. This was made by Uncle Mei for her to carry things. In the end, Wen also followed. The mother and son followed Dali and the others into the mountains. Wen followed with her short legs and asked curiously, Where are we going? Dali whispered, We're bringing you to our secret base. After walking for about 20 minutes, Fu Yun and the others arrived at the secret base that the children were talking about. Are these mulberries? Fu Yun looked at the mulberry trees in front of her. There were ripe purplish-black fruits hanging on them. There were mulberries in the village, but they were eaten by a group of children before they were ripe. It wasn't easy to see such ripe mulberries. The children went up to pick the fruits and put them in Fu Yun's basket. For Sister Ruoruo and Wen. Wen is injured, so you have to eat more. However, you can't tell anyone. This was how Li and the others apologized. Yesterday, when Wen was injured by the evil empress, they felt that they were responsible and only cared about themselves. They didn't notice that Wen didn't run away. Therefore, they shared their secret base with Wen and the others. Fu Yun didn't reject the children's kindness. Then I'll pick the fruits with you. However, we have to eat them together. There are so many fruits. Wen and I won't be able to finish them. It would be a pity if they spoil. Yes. The children were very happy when they heard this. Wen also happily went up to help pick the fruits. Of course, he wasn't happy about the mulberries, but the process of picking them. This small piece of mulberry looked like a lot at first glance, but in fact, not much was picked. The bamboo basket that Fu Yun Ruo brought was filled. The children's trouser pockets were bulging. Their hands were also full, so there was nothing left. Okay, let's go home. When Fu Yun spoke, the children ran forward happily. Let's go back and eat mulberries. Fu Yun also smiled and quickly followed. The program team's live broadcast continued filming today. However, because of yesterday's incident, the atmosphere in Feng Shui's team was a little stiff. Feng Shui looked haggard and worked hard to cooperate with the filming. Occasionally, she would inadvertently reveal her weakness, which made people feel protective of her. According to the script, today's theme was to change partners. Originally, the program team wanted Siyu and Feng Shui to be partners so that there would be topics to talk about. However, after yesterday's incident, the program team quickly changed partners. Xian Su and Feng Shui were in the same team, while Siyu and Wang Huaibei were in the same team. Wang Huaibei had a good impression of Feng Shui, so naturally, he couldn't stand Siyu, who was insulting his goddess. He couldn't help but pick on her. However, Siyu countered with little effort and blocked his words. Wang Huaibei suddenly remembered something and said casually, I remember the children said that there was a sister Ruoruo in their village who was prettier than Shui Ruo. I didn't really believe it. I heard that sister Ruoruo is from Shanghe village. Brother Yu, have you seen her before? Is it true that she's extremely beautiful? Sure enough, the screen was filled with mockery. A village girl? How can she be compared to Shue? The names are so similar. How disgusting. Could it be that she purposely changed her name to ride on Shue's popularity? Siyu raised her eyebrows slightly and looked at Wang Huaibei, who seemed to be very honest. Then, she said, the children are the worst at lying. You're right. Wang Huaibei laughed dryly. Then I'd really like to see it. Siyu said, there's no need to see it. Not everyone wants to be disturbed by unimportant people for no reason. Wang Huaibei was speechless. The assistant cameraman quickly moved the camera away to capture the scenery. He didn't want to capture Siyu's mocking face and attract more hatred. Speaking of which, Siyu's mouth was getting more and more impolite. The assistant cameraman was distracted by the director's repeated instructions. Naturally, he didn't notice that a group of people had suddenly appeared in the distance and were getting closer and closer. Brother, calm down. Calm down. I can do this shot. Goddess. A fairy who accidentally entered the mortal world. That's the woman. I want to know everything about her in 3 minutes. Mommy is this little sister. I'm willing to be a lesbian for her. I can do it. She's so beautiful. Chapter 35. Under the HD camera, a young girl holding a bamboo basket walked towards them. Her retro dress swayed slightly as a group of children circled around her, smiling innocently. The sunlight shone on her fair and exquisite face, making it seem like she was covered in a layer of golden light. The moment she looked over, the audience only thought of one word. 10,000 years in a glance. Fu Yunrua held the bamboo basket and focused all her attention on the children who were chasing each other around her. Looking at the carefree smiles of the children, she couldn't help but smile. Her smile was warm and pure. When she saw the children suddenly stop and look ahead, she also looked over. Not far away, Siyu and a familiar-looking male celebrity were standing together. The cameraman was also there, and it was obvious that they were filming a show. She stopped in her tracks. She didn't want to disturb them, so she didn't greet Siyu. Instead, she said to the children, let's walk around here. When one saw that Siyu and the others were filming a live stream, she looked at her mother nervously and couldn't wait for her mother to leave. When she heard her speak, she hurriedly pulled on her skirt and walked around. Siyu saw Fu Yunrua and a group of children appear, and the camera was focused on them. She frowned and stood in front of the camera to block it. Then, she glanced at the cameraman indifferently. When one had said that she wouldn't let her mother appear on camera, Siyu also didn't want Fu Yunrua to be attacked by Feng Shui's group of brainless fans. The cameraman reacted and hurriedly moved the camera away. The audience watching Siyu's live stream was mesmerized by the beautiful scene. Suddenly, the camera was blocked by a broad back. The audience sighed regretfully. Then, they all asked Siyu not to block the camera. They wanted to see the fairy. In the end, Siyu didn't block the camera. However, the fairy wasn't on the screen. Cameraman, hurry up and film the fairy. I'll give you an extra drumstick. Boo-hoo, I haven't seen enough. It's too cruel. Luckily, I was rational enough to take a screenshot. Hand over the screenshot, and we'll spare your life. No matter how much the audience screamed, the camera remained focused on Siyu and the scenery. Sisters, you can watch Wang Huaibei's livestream next door. It turned out that the cameraman had also noticed the appearance of a group of people and quickly moved the camera over. When the audience saw the eye-catching bullet screen, they remembered that Wang Huaibei was also present. They immediately swarmed over. The number of viewers on Siyu's side dropped sharply, while Wang Huaibei's side rose sharply. Wang Huaibei also saw the girl walking over. She was wearing ordinary clothes that could not hide her outstanding appearance. In terms of appearance and temperament, she seemed to be above Feng Shui. There was astonishment in his eyes. He even had the thought that those children were right, but this thought only flashed through his mind. How could an ordinary girl from the countryside compare to the royal Feng Shui Ruo? Many of Wang Huaibei's fans also liked Feng Shui Ruo. The more they ridiculed her before, the more they slapped her in the face. The audience that rushed in quickly took over the screen and started to lick his face in the bullet screen. Most of the audience who had been slapped in the face were as quiet as chickens. Only a few fans maintained their original views and continued to ridicule her. She could not compare to my Shui at all. There were even some conspiracy theories. Could it be that this woman wanted to use Shui as a stepping stone? She must be crazy to be famous, right? Then, as if they had found a reason, they quickly ridiculed her. However, the public opinion was not one-sided this time. The group of viewers who were obsessed with beauty were not at a disadvantage at all. Ayo? Then your aesthetic standards are really special. To be honest, with Feng Shui Ruo's looks, there are many people in the entertainment industry who are more outstanding than her. I don't know what the brainless fans are so excited about. That's right. In the past, I thought that her otherworldly temperament added points. Now that she's compared to this little fairy, it's the difference between a pirated version and a genuine one. What pirated version? Isn't this the difference between a high-quality product and a low-quality one? Instead of awkwardly praising her looks, why not praise her acting skills? At least an ordinary person can't compare to a movie queen like you. 23333. These valiant viewers were mostly Siyu's fans. Siyu had never concealed his opinions of Feng Shui Ruo, causing his fans to have an average impression of Feng Shui Ruo. They even hated her a little. In fact, due to Siyu revealing his poisonous tongue, the originally passive moons also became poisonous tongues, and their fighting strength increased exponentially. This was probably what they meant by boiling powder with the steam. Wang Huaibei saw her leading the children in a different direction and hurriedly chased after them. Please wait. When the children saw two strangers running over, they hurriedly protected Fu Yun Ruo and Wen behind them. They put their hands on their hips and shouted fiercely, "What do you want?" Wang Huaibei stood a meter away and revealed a friendly smile. Don't misunderstand. We don't have any bad intentions. He looked at Fu Yun Ruo. Are you Miss Ruo? The little protectors looked at them warily. Why are you looking for Sister Ruo? They still remembered that these outsiders had bullied their families when yesterday. Were they going to bully their sister Ruo now? Fu Yun Ruo glanced at the camera that had been pointed at her and politely said to the cameraman, "Hello? Can the camera not be pointed at me? I'm not used to being photographed." The cameraman was stared at by a pair of beautiful eyes. He hesitated for a moment before moving the camera away and pointing it at Wang Huaibei. Fu Yun Ruo then looked at Wang Huaibei. May I ask why you're looking for me? Wang Huaibei was at a loss for words. He didn't know what to say. It's nothing. He glanced at the bamboo basket in her hand and laughed dryly. We're going to pick mulberries. Fu Yun Ruo lowered her head and looked at the bamboo basket. She thought that they had stopped her because they wanted to eat mulberries. Then, she asked the children, "Uncle wants to eat mulberries. Can we give them some?" The children hesitated. They didn't really want to give it, but when they saw Siyu walking over, they thought about how Uncle Yu had given them candy and treated Wen so well. Thus, they said generously, "Let Uncle Yu try it." When they looked at Wang Huaibei, they said reluctantly, "Let this uncle try it too." Fu Yun Ruo laughed, but she still agreed seriously. Then, she grabbed a handful and gave it to Wang Huaibei and the two cameramen. Finally, When she gave it to Siyu, she gave it twice. Siyu's hands were big enough that she could still hold it after giving it twice. Fu Yunruo smiled and nodded at Siyu as a greeting. She didn't say anything. After giving it, she left briskly with the group of children. Siyu watched as Fu Yunruo and the children's figures quickly disappeared from her sight. Then, she turned to Wang Huaibei and saw that he was staring blankly. She clicked her tongue. Then, she turned around and left with a smile. Let's go wash the mulberries. They look delicious. The audience was originally discussing excitedly. They had just seen Little Cutie 1-1, and only then did they notice that Little Cutie and Little Fairy Sister looked extremely similar. With one look, they could tell that they were related by blood. Were these siblings? What kind of immortal parents could give birth to such good-looking children? Did they save the world in their previous life? However, when they heard Siyu say something that deserved a beating in a smug tone, they were immediately envious and jealous. They also wanted their little sister to give them mulberries. Although Fu Yunruo only appeared on screen for a while, related topics quickly appeared on Weibo's forums. Hashtag Little Fairy, hashtag Immortal Siblings, hashtag Gorgeous Little Sister, hashtag Mulberry Lady, hashtag. Such topics quickly appeared on the trending searches and their popularity soared. The hottest topic was a 10-second video recorded by a netizen. The side profile killer, the eyes killer. The fans who saw it quickly fell into a pit. Countless people fell into the video loop and couldn't get out. They ran to the production team and requested for little sister Shan Yin to appear on screen. Fu Yunruo didn't know about the commotion on the internet. She brought the children home and took out the mulberries in the basket and the ones in the children's pockets. She washed them and placed them on a fruit plate. When they went to pick the mulberries, the children were mysterious. However, when they ate them, they were generous. They called the other children who usually played with them over and shared a few with each of them. The group of children ate until their mouths and tongues turned black. Then, they laughed and stuck out their tongues and made funny faces. Wen also ate until his mouth turned purple. However, he felt that it didn't look good. He quickly went over and asked Fu Yunruo to help wipe his mouth. Fu Yunruo didn't wipe it clean after wiping it, so she got some salt water for him to brush his teeth and rinse his mouth. Only then did the color disappear. After the children finished eating the fruit, they played hopscotch with Wen in the courtyard. Fu Yunruo also lined up to jump for a while, under the children's invitation. Only when her phone rang did she quit. Fu Yunruo wiped her sweat and picked up the phone. Hello, Tian. What's wrong? Ruo, you're on the trending searches. Fu Yunruo was surprised for a moment. She thought that it might have been recorded when the production team was doing a live broadcast. However, she didn't know how she got on the trending searches. Her first reaction was, could it be that her identity had been dug out by the audience? Was she being attacked by the entire internet? Fu Yunruo thought of the book that described her in the past. The entire internet was filled with malicious words, as if she was an unpardonable sinner. Her heart suddenly skipped a beat. Should we deal with it? Although we haven't dug out your identity on the platform for the time being, if you fall off the horse, we have to do some public relations in time. Tian always remembered that Fu Yunruo didn't like to show her face. Although she could rely on her looks to become more popular, she preferred to rely on her skills. Tian was now in charge of Fu Yunruo's studio. She was also paying attention to the movements on the internet. When she saw the trending searches, she didn't care at first. However, when she saw that Fu Yunruo was the main character in the video, she immediately called to ask, "Why are you being photographed?" "It was an accident. I was accidentally photographed." Fu Yunruo heard Tian's relaxed tone. It seemed that the situation on the internet was not what she thought. She originally didn't want to go up and take a look. No one would come all the way here to do anything to her. She asked, "Is the internet good or bad?" "It's basically all positive." Tian said, "Should we take this opportunity to announce your identity?" Tian saw Fu Yunruo's popularity on the internet. If they did it well, taking advantage of this popularity to announce her identity would be of great help to Fu Yunruo's popularity. "Don't." Fu Yunruo refused. "It's good like this now. If possible, try to let the topic sink as soon as possible." Fu Yunruo didn't want to show her face in public. She didn't want her private life to be exposed to the public. How good was it now? She could live a quiet life. No matter whether the things on the internet were good or bad, they wouldn't disturb her. All right. Tian felt that it was a pity that she couldn't take advantage of the free popularity, but she still respected her opinion. Then we'll pay more attention here. Okay. Sorry to trouble you. By the way, Rua, I've already sorted out the school information you wanted for you. I've also asked someone to keep an eye on the house you want to buy. I'll inform you as soon as there's a house. Okay. Thank you for your hard work. Fuyun Rua thought that when Juan was so smart that he could go to kindergarten in September. She originally wanted to let her child study here, but after thinking about it, she should start preparing for the future. When one would study here until next year, he would only be 4 years old next year and would be in kindergarten in the capital. 1 year's time was enough for her to arrange everything in the capital. In the dead of night, she carefully thought about Aunt May's words. For herself and her child, she really couldn't continue to stay in this cave. It was time for her to go out. She just didn't know how to say it and persuade Uncle Gua to go with her. After hanging up the phone, Fuyun Rua remembered that Tian said that it was a positive trending topic. She was quite curious and went to take a look. She browsed through the netizens' comments and trending topics and felt quite awkward. Although she had always felt that this face was very good, she felt that the netizens' praises were too exaggerated. There was actually a topic about Miss Mulberry. Could it be because she was holding a mulberry at that time? Fuyun Rua looked for a while. Other than licking her face, the netizens were asking about her identity. No one recognized her. She couldn't help but think that the netizens were really forgetful. She remembered that the original her had appeared on camera online and was even on the trending topic. However, the comments were all mocking and insulting. It was clearly the same face. Was there such a big difference? She used the webcam to look at herself in the mirror. The only difference was whether she put on makeup or not. Was there really no one who recognized her? She looked up the news in the past and found that she didn't know when, but all the news about her had disappeared on the internet. It was as if she had never existed. Fuyun Rua didn't know what to feel for a moment. However, she didn't immerse herself in this emotion for long. When one ran over and hugged her leg, she looked up at her and asked with concern, "Mom, what's wrong?" Fuyun Rua put aside her thoughts and touched Wenwen's face. "Mom is fine." Then, she stood up and took Wenwen out to play with the children. When the guests were resting, Feng Shui Rua naturally saw the trending topic. She also saw that the children were talking about Sister Rua, who was prettier than her. She pinched her palms so hard that red marks appeared on her fingertips. She didn't know what was going on recently. Everything she did wasn't going well. It wasn't like this in the past. Ever since she participated in this show, she shouldn't have participated in this show. This show and the people here didn't match her horoscope. Feng Shui Rua looked at the smiling woman on the phone, and her eyes turned red with jealousy. She was just a village girl. How could she have a better temperament than the one she had raised for so many years? No, it must be the effect of the camera filter. How could she be better than her? This face really disgusted her. However, when they walked out of the room, Feng Shui Rua didn't notice anything unusual. She smiled and spoke gently to Xian Su. Then, she inadvertently and sincerely praised, "I just saw the trending topic. The Sister Rua from the village is really much prettier than me." Xian Su smiled foolishly and didn't say anything. He agreed with her in his heart, but it wasn't good to nod in front of the person involved. Feng Shui Rua's smile didn't change. She pinched her palms again and said gently, "This is the sister of the child from yesterday, right? I was wrong about what happened yesterday. I thought about it carefully. I should formally apologize to the child's parents." Feng Shui Rua lowered her eyes and bit her full lower lip. "You know them, right? Can you take me to see them?" Xian Su hesitated and thought about it. He felt that it was right. Sister Rua was obviously very angry because of Wenwen's injury. If Feng Shui apologized in person, Sister Rua wouldn't be so angry. Okay. The two of them walked towards Shanghe village. However, before they reached Fuyun Rua's house, they met Siyu and Wang Huaibei's group. Siyu raised his eyebrows slightly when he saw them. "Brother Yu." "Brother Huaibei." Xian Su was quite happy to see the two of them. Siyu said, "If I remember correctly, you guys should be doing a mission in Shihe village?" Xian Su looked at Feng Shui Rua and scratched the back of his head. Brother, Sister Shui Ruo said that she wants to apologize to Sister Ruo Ruo in person. Feng Shui Ruo tucked her hair behind her ears and took a step forward. She looked at Siyu with her bright eyes and said, I think that we should apologize to Wenwen's parents. Siyu looked at her ambiguously and suddenly asked, Did you see the trending searches online? Feng Shui Ruo smiled faintly and said sincerely, Yes. Wenwen and his sister look very much alike. It's just as the internet says. They are a pair of immortal siblings. Siyu looked her up and down and smiled mockingly. If I remember correctly, you came looking for me time and time again because you wanted to find your sister. When he said the last two words, there was an inexplicable meaning in his tone. The sister that she was so worried about was right in front of her, but she couldn't recognize her. Siyu had only interacted with her once. At that time, he hadn't been fully conscious. Even so, he had recognized her at first glance. How could this woman, who had said that she cared about her sister and had been with her for more than 10 years, not recognize her after watching the video? If she had anxiously come looking for her sister after watching the video, Siyu might have thought better of her. But in the end, Siyu looked at this hypocritical woman and felt that it was really laughable. He did laugh twice. He really didn't understand how such a stupid woman could be doing so well. Feng Shui Ruo didn't react immediately. 3 years ago, she had chased after Siyu and asked him about Fu Yun's whereabouts. Later, she had disappeared for too long and the family had deliberately downplayed her existence. Now, the outside world thought that she was the only daughter of the Fu family. Feng Shui Ruo hadn't thought of her for a long time. Siyu took the initiative to mention it to her. Feng Shui was stunned. Then, she said in surprise, You really know about my sister? Where is she? Siyu ignored her and looked at her coldly. You are so hypocritical that it disgusts me. Then, he looked at Xin Su and said, Let's go. Oh. Xin Su was confused, but he still followed Siyu. He didn't even have time to film the program. Wait. Feng Shui Ruo was about to chase after them when she suddenly thought of something and her face changed. Ruo. Fu Yun Ruo? Wang Huaibei didn't know what they were talking about. When he saw that Feng Shui Ruo's face was pale, he asked with concern, Shui Ruo, what's wrong? Feng Shui Ruo came back to her senses. Nothing. She still didn't look well. Let's go back. Okay. Wang Huaibei looked at her with concern. He wanted to ask more, but when he saw that she didn't want to talk, he didn't ask. Feng Shui Ruo went back to her room and locked herself in. She immediately turned on her phone and looked at the video. Fu Yun Ruo. It was her. It had only been 4 years. How did she change so much? How could she not recognize her? Her impression of the woman was that she had sharp eyes, a bad temper, and was full of thorns and aggressive. Because she didn't sleep well, her skin was in poor condition, and she always wore heavy makeup to hide her haggard appearance. This woman, on the other hand, had a completely different aura. She looked like a completely different person. Feng Shui Ruo suddenly remembered why she felt that the child looked so familiar that it made her hate him. Wasn't he a replica of Fu Yun Ruo when she was young? It seemed that when she first met her stepsister at such a young age, her eyes were filled with hatred and hostility when she looked at her and her mother. Feng Shui Ruo suddenly calmed down. She thought of something and her lips curled into a smile. Younger brother? No, this was a son, right? Xin Su followed Siyu back to the Mei family. He was still confused and kept thinking about the conversation between Siyu and Feng Shui Ruo. Older sister? Who were they talking about? Didn't the Fu family only have one young lady? Wasn't that the rumor in the industry? The Fu family had more than one young lady? The marriage between the Chang family and the Fu family was a match made in heaven. Feng Shui Ruo entered the entertainment industry because she didn't want to rely on her family's background, so she used her mother's surname. In fact, even if Feng Shui Ruo kept denying it, everyone in the industry knew that Feng Shui Ruo's backing was the Fu family and the Chang family. Otherwise, how could Feng Shui Ruo be so successful in the industry that even those who slept with her didn't dare to approach her? Why would they give her all the good resources? This was also the rumor circulating among Feng Shui Ruo's fans. They even proudly boasted that their idol was the cleanest female celebrity in the entertainment industry. She was the real Miss Perfect. Although it wasn't exposed, it was still a rumor. Could it be that the Fu family had more than one young lady? That seemed to be the case. There was a piece of news that said that Feng Shuirua had a stepsister, and that she was often bullied by her stepsister. Xian Su fainted. High society was really complicated. Siyu didn't know what Xian Su was thinking. He returned to his room and called his agent. Keep an eye on the situation online. Yuan Xian's first reaction was, "What did you do this time?" Siyu was speechless. He clicked his tongue and said, "Keep an eye on Feng Shuiru. You can deal with any news that involves Fu Yunrua." Yuan Xian nodded and then asked suspiciously, "Are you hiding something from me? Why are you so concerned about Fu Yunrua recently? Even if she is the first and only woman you have ever touched, you didn't care about her before." Siyu was speechless. "Shut up." Yuan Xian chuckled. "You used to be so picky. When I mocked you for being a virgin, you didn't get angry. Now that you aren't a virgin anymore, why are you so shy? This isn't like you, who is pure and has few desires." Siyu chuckled. "Me? Shy? No matter how pure and simple I am, it's still better than you having so many people around you. You're already so old, but you don't even have a child." Yuan Xian laughed. "You speak as if you have a child." Siyu was speechless. Yuan Xian was speechless. "Fuck. Don't tell me you're really pregnant?" Yuan Xian roared. "Bastard. How dare you hide such a big thing from me? You." He was so angry that he didn't care about offending his superior and directly scolded him. Siyu moved his phone away. "Okay, that's all. Goodbye." Yuan Xian's irritable voice stopped abruptly. Siyu casually put his phone aside and rapped his knuckles on the table. After solving these problems, Fu Yunrua wouldn't be cooped up here anymore, right? He had planned ahead. The filming would end in 10 days, so he had no reason to stay here for long. Furthermore, it wasn't realistic for him to stay here. In order to persuade her to leave with the child, other than persuading her with emotions and reasoning, the most direct way was to resolve her concerns. In the past, he had allowed that couple to jump around in front of him. Every time he wanted to do something to them, there would always be a voice in his heart that stopped him from doing so. His intuition had always been very accurate, so he had always allowed that lucky couple to make their presence known everywhere they went. Later on, he noticed that whenever someone tried to harm them, it would be a blessing in disguise for them, while the person who went against them would be extremely unlucky. But now, Siyu ignored his intuition and decided to completely resolve the problem. If they were unlucky, so be it. He could afford to be unlucky. His son was as silly as his mother and only knew how to be bullied. If he didn't get rid of them first, was he going to let them bully his son? Chapter 36. Fu Yun brought Wenwen back to the flower garden early the next morning. Uncle Gua saw that Wenwen's little hands were wrapped in gauze and his heart ached. He insisted on getting to the bottom of it. After Fu Yun explained, he aggressively went to find the production team to settle the score, but was stopped by Fu Yun. Even so, he still scolded for a while. If it weren't for the fact that he couldn't curse in front of children, he would have scolded even more fiercely. After Fu Yun comforted Uncle Gua, she started the live broadcast. After a day and 2 nights of publicity for the Heavenly Queen Lu Ji's MV, Lu Ji specially thanked Fu Yun during the press conference. She also benefited from it, so the popularity of the live broadcast increased a little. Although it wasn't obvious, in her studio's resume, she had worked with top people before. This benefit was long-term. Fu Yun didn't intend to tell her fans that the eldest lotus petal orchid was showing signs of mutation. At first, she wasn't sure. After confirming it, she wanted to give them a surprise. However, there were many professional orchid artists among her fans. It didn't take long for them to realize it and asked excitedly on the screen. Since someone mentioned it, Fu Yun didn't hide it and confirmed the fans' guess. The fans were stunned. They had watched the 12 brothers grow up since they were seeds. The eldest had actually mutated. The eldest was indeed the eldest. For a moment, almost everyone's attention was on the eldest. They all wanted to see how the mutated lotus petal orchid would turn everyone upside down. Her private messages were even more lively. There were many orchid lovers among her fans, and there was no lack of rich people. Not long after she started raising the orchids, there were people who wanted to buy the orchids she raised, but she didn't sell them. Now, The price was high. Her orchids had become celebrity orchids. Each of them had many fans, especially the fans who came from her videos. Most of them were Lao Wu's fans. If these orchids were formed into a group, Lao Wu would temporarily be the center. Now, the taciturn eldest stood out and became the most eye-catching star with the most potential. In her private messages, most of them wanted to buy the lotus petal orchid. The price was high and not low. The highest price was 10 million yuan. It was enough to show the attraction of the mutated orchid to orchid lovers. No wonder Brother Chi had once lamented to her that professional farmers were either so poor that they had to eat dirt or so rich that they were overflowing with oil. She really experienced it today. Fu Yun politely rejected their request to buy it. She was not short of money now, and she was even more reluctant to sell the orchids that she had spent so much effort to cultivate. After Fu Yun Ruo replied to some of her fans' inquiries, the person in charge of the Lani Association also came looking for her. This time, they wanted her to participate as a video guide for the publicity. The promotional video not only quoted her video, but also promoted Lan Yi's history in the form of a blockbuster. The person in charge felt that Fu Yun's video production was very spiritual and wanted to ask her for guidance. If Fu Yun was interested, she would naturally agree. However, the headquarters of the Lani Association was in the imperial capital. It was not convenient for Fu Yun to attend the event at the moment. She planned to take the child to the capital at the end of July and August and return at the end of August. It would be just in time for kindergarten to start. When Fu Yun Ruo came out, Wenwan was sitting on a small stool. Uncle Guo was holding a cup of ice cream in one hand and a small wooden spoon in the other. He was feeding Wenwan the ice cream mouthful by mouthful. Wenwan narrowed her eyes as she ate. Her short legs were swinging happily. Fu Yun Ruo walked over and pulled a long face. Ahem. Wenwan immediately jumped down. Mommy. Uncle Guo put the ice cream behind him and tried his best to put on a dignified face. Is the live broadcast over? Fu Yun Ruo nodded. Then, she glanced at the old and young pair and reached out her hand. Give it to me. Wenwan touched her fingers. Mommy, I didn't eat much. Uncle Guo also said, yes, Wenwan is very obedient. He only ate half of it. I'll eat the other half. Okay, Fu Yun Ruo replied. Then she said, don't be greedy. You'll get a stomachache. She looked at Uncle Guo. Uncle Guo, you too? The old and young pair's spleen and stomach were not good. Although the weather was so hot that they wanted to eat cold food, they couldn't be greedy. Eating too much was not good for the body. After Fu Yun Ruo instructed the two of them, she went to do her work. Anyway, they were under her watch, so she wasn't afraid of them turning the tables. After CU finished broadcasting the morning program, she received news in the afternoon that the things she wanted had been sent to town. She went out for a trip. In the end, the travel warn manager, Yuan Xian, came along with the car. He looked like he hadn't slept for a few days. There were big dark circles under his eyes. When he saw CU, it was as if he had seen his enemy. His eyes were about to pop out. CU Tsged, why are you here? Yuan Xian sneered. Can I not come? If I don't come, will you go to heaven one day? Shocking. Best Actor C actually has an illegitimate child. What do you think of this title? The place where they were standing was empty. Other than their own people, anyone who came close would see them. Yuan Xian didn't have any scruples when he spoke. Nothing. CU didn't like these 3 words. She couldn't help but frown when she heard them. You clearly know that you are being watched and have information that can be used against you. Why didn't you discuss such a big matter with me? If I wasn't sharp, you wouldn't have told me, right? CU said, it's not too late to find out now. Besides, if she really wanted to hide it from him, she wouldn't have taken the initiative to give herself away. Yuan Xian looked around CU. Where's your son? CU frowned. They don't know yet. Yuan Xian was speechless. What kind of weird plot was this? What's the matter? CU didn't explain to him. Instead, she asked, is my face unrecognizable? Why can't I remember it? Yuan Xian looked at her handsome face. Maybe she didn't even look at you? CU was speechless. Yuan Xian thought about it and felt that it was impossible. Then, he found another reason. Maybe she's face blind. She can't tell if the person in front of her is a human or a dog. CU snorted. That woman wasn't face-blind at all. She just couldn't see clearly who the person in front of her was. Yuan Xian said with certainty, "It's the child who appeared in your live broadcast." He looked at the screenshot. "She looks so cute. She doesn't look like you at all. How did you recognize her? Do you want to do a DNA test?" Siyu looked at him indifferently. "Not everyone is like that woman. She can't even recognize people." Yuan Xian sneered. "How much do you care that you keep mentioning it?" Siyu snorted. Why would he care about that? Are these things for children? Let's go. I want to take a look too. Siyu didn't refuse. Watch your words. I know. Do you think I'm you? The black caravan slowly drove into the village and stopped in front of the Mei family's house. The villagers and children came over to watch curiously. Siyu smiled faintly. My manager is here to see me. Yuan Xian was fat, but he was agile. He took out a big bag of candy and gave it to the adults and children. He smiled and said, I'm Siyu's manager, Yuan Xian. Brothers and sisters, you can call me Brother Yuan. Thank you for taking care of Siyu. I didn't bring much, so I'm just giving you some imported candy. I hope you don't mind. You're too kind, Brother Yuan. The children's pockets were filled with candy as they ran away happily. After receiving the candy, the adults treated Yuan Xian and Siyu even more kindly and friendly. After exchanging a few pleasantries, they didn't surround them anymore and left one after another, leaving them alone to talk. The chauffeur, Yuan Xian, and Siyu carried the bags into the house. When Aunt May saw so many things, she initially thought they were for Siyu. When she found out that they were all for Wen, she was stunned. This. No matter how ignorant she was, she knew that these things weren't cheap. Why were they all for Wen? For a moment, Aunt May couldn't help but think that Yu had taken a liking to Ruoruo and wanted to please Ruoruo by sucking up to Wen. You don't have to give the child so many things. If you really mean it, just give her some small trinkets, Aunt May reminded. Ruoruo won't accept so many gifts. Yuan Xian laughed heartily. Sister, Siyu's original intention was to buy 1 or 2 small toys and 2 sets of clothes. It was the company's idea to buy so many things. We don't have any other intentions. You don't know, but when we saw Wen appear on the live broadcast, our hearts softened. She's such a lovely child. Isn't that so? When Aunt May heard Yuan Xian's undisguised praise and fondness for Wen, she immediately smiled like a flower. Wen is such a lovely child. You don't know. Yuan Xian excitedly chatted with Aunt May. After a while, he brought up 2 or 3 interesting things about Wen when she was young. He even showed them photos of Wen when she was young. Siyu was speechless. He originally had a problem with Yuan Xian taking the credit for buying the gifts to the company, but now he just wanted to give him a thumbs up. He was indeed a famous old fox in the entertainment industry. Siyu held the thick photo album in his hand. He didn't have any objections. He looked at the white and cute little guy in the photo and was entranced. No wonder he was his son. He was so cute. After talking for a long time, Yuan Xian suddenly slapped his thigh and said, Hey, big sister, should I send the gifts over now? These are the gifts from my company to the child. They really like Wen. When they knew that I was coming over, they wanted to come over as well, but they were afraid that it would be rude, so they could only ask me to send the gifts over. See, you give me one gift after another. That's how we accumulated so many gifts. Aunt May didn't think that these gifts were exaggerated anymore. Each and every one of them was a gift from other people to Wen. Their Wen was so lovable. Aunt May was very proud. Hey, there's no one in the old house now. Ruoruo and Wen went to the flower garden. Siyu immediately looked over and asked, They're not there? Ruoruo has a job after all. If they live in the village, it's not convenient for them to travel back and forth every day with the child. They only come back to stay occasionally. Aunt May didn't mind. Ruoruo came back to the village at least 2 or 3 times a month. When she was free, she would also go to the flower garden, so she didn't think much of it. Yuan Xian glanced at Siyu and said, Then can we go to the flower garden to look for them? Aunt May waved her hand and said, Don't. Old man Gua has a bad temper. He doesn't like people going to his flower garden. Even if you go, you won't be able to enter. Gua? Flower garden? Siyu raised her eyebrows and said, Is it old man Guazheng? The orchid he raises? Hey, that's indeed his name. Aunt May kept calling him Old Man Gua and almost forgot his real name. The orchid he raises. That's such a coincidence. Yuan Xian clapped his hands. Aunt May asked curiously, you know each other? Old Man Guozheng has a student called Chi Weicheng. He's our colleague. When he heard that we were coming here, he specially asked us to visit the teacher on his behalf. Siyu nodded and said, but I've been filming the show and haven't had the time. I was thinking of visiting him after filming. Aunt May didn't expect that they had such a relationship. She suddenly realized and said, after all this fuss, we're all on the same side. Yuan Xian nodded and said, yes, we're all on the same side. That's such a coincidence. Aunt May saw that they were even closer. Aunt May had treated them with some politeness before, but now she completely treated them as her own juniors. Old Man Gua definitely won't stop you from going in, Aunt May said cheerfully. I'll take you there tonight. It was convenient for them to have a car, so they arrived after a 10-minute drive. Aunt May still remembered that Siyu still had to film the show, so she thoughtfully waited for them to arrive at night. Then I'll have to trouble you, big sister. The atmosphere here was harmonious and cheerful, but the atmosphere on the other side wasn't so good. Fang Shui, Ruo Zhang, and Wang Huaibei, as well as another group of guests, Healing and Ouyang Xingheng, were all smiling and doing missions together. She was the moon surrounded by the stars and was coaxed by the three men. The audience screamed in envy. They also wanted to be surrounded by handsome men of different styles. The screen was harmonious. Suddenly, a tall man wearing sunglasses and a suit with long legs entered the frame. He pulled Fang Shuerua into his arms overbearingly. Ah! Fang Shui screamed and was about to reject him when a deep voice came from above her head. Shuer! Fang Shui looked up and saw that the man had taken off his sunglasses, revealing a pair of deep and affectionate eyes. Brother Chong! Fang Shui exclaimed in surprise when she saw Chang Zhuyu. Why are you here? Chang Zhuyu's heart ached as he hugged her. The anger in his heart turned into tenderness when he looked at Fang Shui. I'm here to see you. Fang Shui's fair cheeks flushed red. I'll be back soon. Why did you have to come all the way here? If I didn't come, wouldn't others bully you even more? As he spoke, he narrowed his eyes and glanced coldly at the crew. Fang Shui lowered her head slightly, then looked up at Chang Zhuyu and smiled. Of course not. The crew takes good care of me. You. Chang Zhuyu sighed helplessly and looked at her gently. It's because you're too kind that you get bullied. Then he said domineeringly, that's all for today. We're not filming anymore. What are you talking about? Fang Shui frowned and looked at him. I'm filming. Okay. Chang Zhuyu immediately changed his words. I'll watch you from the side. Then he stepped aside, crossed his arms, and watched from the side. Fang Shui smiled apologetically at the crew and said, let's continue. The crew looked at each other and felt uncomfortable, especially when there was someone staring at them like a tiger watching its prey. The guests felt even more awkward. Even their movements and expressions stiffened. At this moment, the live broadcast room was filled with screams and screams. Everyone was shouting that this was a living, domineering CEO. So sweet. The cameraman understood the audience's feelings very well. From time to time, he would glance at Chang Zhuyu and Fang Shui. Occasionally, they would inadvertently look at each other, and the audience would shout that they were full of dog food. When the show finally finished filming and the crew was about to leave, Chang Zhuyu called out coldly, wait. Director Peng wiped his sweat. Young Master Chong, what can I do for you? Chang Zhuyu said coldly, shouldn't the crew give me an explanation? This, Brother Chong. Fang Shui tugged at his sleeve and looked at him pleadingly. Chang Zhuyu looked at Fang Shui and sighed. In the end, he couldn't persuade Fang Shui. Get lost. He looked at Fang Shui affectionately. Fang Shui smiled at him and asked with concern, are you okay? I'm fine. You, on the other hand, have been wronged, Chang Zhuyu promised. Shui, don't worry. I will get justice for you. Fang Shui asked anxiously, don't tell me you? Chang Zhuyu said coldly, I won't let see you off. When he thought of what had happened to him, his face turned pale. When Chang Zhuyu saw that his woman was being bullied by Siyu, he immediately ordered his subordinates to teach Siyu a lesson. However, Apple Entertainment didn't give him any face. On the surface, They tried to shirk responsibility and protect Siyu. Chang Zhuyu had no choice but to look for Yuan Xian personally and give him a stern warning. Yuan Xian didn't buy it at all and looked at her as if she was slandering and making trouble for no reason. He said righteously, "Who doesn't know that our Siyu is the most gentle and polite to people, especially to women? He's the most respectful and considerate. How could he possibly insult and ridicule others without caring about their reputation?" Live broadcast room? I don't see it in the live broadcast room. Yuan Xian lied through his teeth. Siyu's performance in the live broadcast room is obvious to all. You can't slander our Siyu just because she doesn't have a good temper. Apple Entertainment isn't a pushover. Chang Zhuyu said coldly, "Does that mean Apple Entertainment is going to protect him?" Young Master Chang, are you kidding? Siyu is the pillar of Apple Entertainment. Who else can we protect if not him? Chang Zhuyu left angrily. Since he couldn't pressure Apple Entertainment, he had to expose his dirty secrets. However, this person was too clean. His private life was clean and he didn't have any bad habits. He never acted like a big shot in the crew. He was humble to his seniors and took care of his juniors. He wasn't close to any female celebrities and had a good reputation. Other than when he was filming, there was no news about him at all. Since he couldn't find anything that could be used against him, he had to create some dirt. He found a studio and a VIP account, but they didn't dare to accept the job when they heard Siyu's name, even if they offered double the price. Siyu's name was taboo in these studios. Who would dare to expose such groundless dirt? When he first became famous, his studio had accepted the job, but in the end, the entire studio had disappeared. Some VIP accounts had also said some groundless things to attract attention, but in the end, they had been sued and even lost their underwear. Apple Entertainment was a big shot in the entertainment industry. If they wanted to protect someone, who would dare to offend them? As long as Apple Entertainment didn't give up on him, as long as he didn't make any mistakes, he would be able to stand tall in the entertainment industry. Chang Zhuyu was so angry that he almost vomited blood. He was the young master of the Chang family and the only heir. How could he not do something to a mere celebrity in the entertainment industry? He had simply used his own money to set up a studio and asked his assistant to form an army of trolls. However, he realized that he couldn't even post anything. How much did he have to pay to be restricted? Chang Zhuyu was so angry that he almost died. Of course, he wouldn't tell Feng Shui about these things. His Shui'er was kind-hearted and definitely wouldn't want him to do these things. Feng Shui looked at him worriedly. "I'm fine. You don't have to, Shui'er. Don't worry. I know what I'm doing." Then, he changed the topic. "Bring me to see the naughty duckling you told me about." "Okay." Siyu and the others had dinner at around 5 o'clock. At 6 o'clock, Aunt May said, "Let's go over now." Aunt May knew their schedule very well. At this time, they would have just finished dinner when they arrived. Exine Su's eyes lit up when he saw that they were about to go out. He asked, "Can I go?" "Next time," Siyu said. Aunt May comforted him. "The place we are going to doesn't welcome too many people. You can go and take a look next time." She thought that since Xiao Su and Ruoruo were very close, he wouldn't be rejected if he visited. "Okay." Just as they were about to leave, someone shouted from outside, "Aunt May, are you there?" "Yes, what's the matter?" "The old couple at the entrance of the village is quarreling again. Hurry up and go take a look." Right away, Aunt May looked at Siyu and Yuan Xian. Yuan Xian immediately said, "Sister May, you go ahead. Siyu and I will follow the GPS. We can find the place." Aunt May was still worried, but the people outside were urging them. She gave them Fu Yun and Ruoruo's phone number. "If you can't find the way, call Ruoro." "Okay." Aunt May left in a hurry. Xian Su couldn't care less about what they were going to do. He hurriedly followed Aunt May. He was more interested in the gossip in the village. It sounded like a fierce fight. He wanted to go and take a look. Chapter 37. When Wen's chubby hands were supporting his waist as he took a stroll outside with his round tummy, Grandpa doted on him, so he was too proud and accidentally ate too much. His mother ordered him to walk for at least half an hour. His legs were very tired. When Wen lowered his head to look at his short legs, but all he saw was a watermelon-like tummy. Sigh, he suddenly missed his 8-pack abs. It was okay. He was still young. When he grew up, he would be tall and strong with defined abs. Fu Yun Ruo and Uncle Gua were working in the kitchen. Uncle Gua was preparing to cook mung bean paste. The weather had been getting hotter recently, so he wanted to cook some mung bean paste to relieve the heat. Fu Yun Ruo was washing the cupboards and cleaning the kitchen. The door to the flower garden was already locked, so they didn't have to worry about one running out. When paced back and forth in front of the bungalow. Suddenly, he noticed a faint light. He turned his head to look outside, then ran to the edge of the metal fence and stood on his tiptoes to look outside. He saw bright headlights flashing, and then a huge car came from afar. Soon, it stopped in front of the flower garden. When one looked over curiously, it was so late. Who would come here? It seemed like they were here. Were they here for Grandpa Gua? The car stopped and the door opened quickly. When one saw 3 people getting out of the car one after another. The bright lights shone on their faces. When one recognized a particularly conspicuous tall man and shouted happily, "Uncle Yu!" Siyu heard the childish voice and walked over to the barbed wire fence. He saw the little boy looking up at him with his big, sparkling eyes. His expression softened. When one said softly, "Why are you here?" Siyu's lips curved, and his voice unconsciously became gentle. "I miss When one laughed so hard that his teeth could be seen. He couldn't help but cover his face and peek at him through his fat fingers. Oh, his idol said that he missed him. So shy. Actually, he also missed his uncle a little. When Yuan Xian saw Siyu squatting down and talking to the child, his line of sight happened to be blocked by Siyu. After knowing that this child was Siyu's son, his heart itched to meet him. He squeezed out a space with his fleshy body and pushed Siyu to the side. Then, he smiled like a wolf and said, "Hello, little girl. Your name is Wan, right? I'm your Uncle Yu's friend. Call me Uncle Yuan." Wan looked at Yuan Xian in confusion. She recognized that he was the person who had left a deep impression on her. He remembered that this was Siyu's manager, and this manager was looking at him with an amiable expression. When Fu Yun Ruo heard the commotion outside, she walked out and shouted, "Mom!" Wen turned and ran over. She held her hand and said excitedly, "Mom, it's Uncle Yu. They're here." Wen pulled Fu Yun Ruo out and headed towards the direction of the metal gate. Wen pointed outside impatiently and said, "Uncle Yu." Fu Yun looked up and saw 3 people standing outside the door. One of them was someone she knew. She said in surprise, "Mr. Yu, why are you here?" Then, she looked at the 2 people standing beside Siyu. One of them was wearing sunglasses and looked tall and burly. He seemed to be a bodyguard. The other was a short and fat middle-aged man who looked approachable. "Who are these 2? "This is my manager, Yuan Xian. This is my assistant, Xiao Wu." Siyu introduced them briefly and then said to Fu Yun, "Aren't you going to invite us in?" Fu Yun hesitated and said, "I'll ask Uncle Gua first." Although it was impolite not to open the door for guests, Fu Yun always knew that Uncle Gua didn't like outsiders coming to the flower garden. Now, there were 3 people who she wasn't familiar with. Fu Yun wasn't the owner of this place, so she couldn't make the decision. Siyu didn't say anything. Instead, Yuan Xian said in a friendly manner, "It's only right. There were old people, young people, and weak people here. It was right to be vigilant and not open the door easily, especially at night. We're Qi Weiqing's colleagues. He knows that we're coming here and specially instructed us to visit his teacher, Old Master Gua, on his behalf. Could you please tell Old Master Gua?" Fu Yun immediately thought that Brother Qi was Apple Entertainment's manager, and Siyu was also a star of Apple Entertainment. Wasn't his manager and Qi Weiqing's colleagues? Thus, she said, "Please wait a moment." Fu Yun held Wen's hand and went back to the bungalow. Wen turned to look at them a few times, but didn't pester Fu Yun. If they insisted on coming in, Grandpa Gua would be unhappy. He only thought that if they couldn't come in, he would stand outside and talk to Uncle Yu. Uncle Gua asked, "What's the matter?" He also heard the commotion outside the door. Fu Yun said, "Brother Qi's colleagues said that they're here to visit you." Fu Yun simply repeated what they said. She didn't doubt the authenticity of these people. After all, Siyu was here, but whether they could come in or not still depended on Uncle Gua's approval. Uncle Gua immediately frowned. They were here to visit so late? He wasn't happy. But after all, they were his students' colleagues. He could give Qi Weiqing some face. But in front of Qi Weiqing's colleagues, he still had to give him some face so that he wouldn't have a hard time in the company. "Let them in," Uncle Gua said. Fu Yun responded, then turned and walked out. Wen was so happy that she skipped and ran in front of him. Fu Yun opened the door for them. "Sorry for making you wait." "See you." Yuan Xian and the other two immediately walked in with big and small bags. Fu Yun thought that these were things that Qi Weiqing asked his colleagues to bring to Uncle Gua. She didn't say anything and even took the initiative to help. But they didn't ask her to help. The group of people walked into the bungalow. Uncle Gua saw them and didn't know any of them. Only the rascal looked familiar. Siyu said humbly, "Teacher Gua." Uncle Gua snorted and still kept a straight face. Yuan Xian went forward to introduce himself again and brought Qi Weiqing's instructions. Then, he took out a bunch of nutritional products. "Ah-Cheng asked us to bring these to you. Please accept them." Uncle Gua said unhappily, "I don't need these things. Take them back." He didn't even look at them. He didn't like the messy things outside. Yuan Xian smiled. "These are Ah-Cheng's kind intentions. He's not here, so we can't make decisions for him. Our mission is to bring these things to you. Don't make things difficult for us." Fu Yun poured tea for them. Seeing Uncle Gua's duplicitous look, she advised, "Uncle Gua, these are Brother Qi's kind intentions. If you don't accept them, they won't be able to explain to Brother Qi." Uncle Gua snorted and didn't say anything else. However, Fu Yun didn't expect that this matter was related to her. Yuan Xian happily brought a bunch of things to Fu Yun. "These are from Ah-Cheng and our company's staff. They are for Wen. Please accept them." Fu Yun Ruo was extremely surprised. There was actually Wen's share. She repeatedly refused. "No need, no need. How can I let you spend money? Thank you for your kindness." Fu Yun could tell that these things weren't cheap just by looking at the packaging. How could she accept such expensive gifts? And there were so many of them? Fu Yingruo still wanted to refuse, but Uncle Gua said, "Accept them. These are the kids' kind intentions." Uncle Gua thought that Qi Weiqing had bought these things for Wen. He saw Wen as his own grandson, so it was natural for his student to treat Wen well. At most, he would give him a pot of valuable orchids. He wouldn't let Qi Weiqing suffer a loss. Fu Yun said awkwardly, "It's too expensive." Wen stood in front of Siyu, looked up and asked, "Uncle you know Uncle Cheng too?" Although Wen had a lot of opinions about Qi Weiqing in the beginning, he later found out that he wasn't his stepfather. In the end, he also found out that his mother didn't abandon him. Wen's grudge against Qi Weiqing disappeared. He even felt embarrassed for his hostility towards Qi Weiqing. After that, he became much closer to Qi Weiqing. Siyu responded. He was unhappy that Yuan Xian said that these things were bought by Qi Weiqing. He was clearly the one who bought them. But he knew in his heart that if Fu Yun and the others knew that he had asked someone to bring these things over, they would definitely not accept them. After all, in her eyes, they were just friends who had known each other for a few days. He never thought that there would be a day when he had to rely on his relationship with Qi Weiqing. He felt even more unhappy. However, with Wen's soft and small body in his arms, his mood instantly brightened. Wen sat on Siyu's arm and curiously looked at Yuan Xian a few more times. The Yuan Xian in his memory was more than 20 years in the future. Although he took good care of himself at that time, he was still much older than now. His hair was already gray, and the wrinkles on his face were faintly visible. At that time, Yuan Xian had a benevolent appearance and was very imposing. At that time, he was one of the authoritative figures in Apple Entertainment. Siyu lowered his head and saw Wen's bulging stomach. He couldn't help but stare at him. Wen noticed Siyu's gaze and hurriedly took a deep breath, wanting to shrink his stomach. However, after trying for a long time, his face turned red, but his stomach showed no signs of shrinking. Wen said with a wooden face, "Children are all like this. When I grow up, I won't have a small stomach anymore." Siyu held back his laughter. Okay. He was very considerate of the child's face. Wen is really a handsome and smart child. Yuan Xian's attention had been diverted to Wen. At this moment, he couldn't hold it in anymore. He tried to reach out to Wen, wanting to hug him. Seeing that Wen didn't reject him, Yuan Xian happily carried Wenwen over. The smile on his face deepened. This child was much more likable than Siyu, this dog of a man. Siyu saw that Wenwen didn't reject Yuan Xian's closeness and clicked his tongue. He thought that Wenwen was too careless towards strangers. In the future, he would have to add this to his education curriculum. Wenwen wrapped his arms around Yuan Xian's neck and thought that 20 years later, he would never have thought that there would be a day when he would be hugged by a big shot. Oh, an Uncle Yu. He was an idol that he had never seen before. In the future, he would never have thought that he would have such a fortuitous encounter when he was reborn. At this moment, Wenwen suddenly felt that he had reached the peak of his life. Uncle Gua suddenly said to Siyu, "In the past, you were the one who took away my orchids, right?" Siyu. He coughed softly and didn't say anything. Although he was thick-skinned in front of Yuan Xian, he felt guilty in front of old Mr. Gua. Uncle Gua immediately snorted coldly. Fu Yun looked over and said in surprise, "Mr. Yu, you're the one who can't raise orchids?" She had a deep impression of this person whom she had never met before. Every time Uncle Gua mentioned this person, he would get angry for half a day. Later on, Wenwen also had the same constitution. She had a deeper impression of this person. In the past, she had thought that the story of raising and dying an orchid was exaggerated. However, after seeing the consequences of one when raising orchids, she didn't find it strange at all. Indeed, the world was big and full of strange things. Wenwen looked over in surprise and her eyes widened. "Uncle Yu, you can't raise orchids either?" "Me too." "What a coincidence." He immediately opened his arms to Siyu, and Siyu carried the child over. The two of them, who were in the same boat, had a lot to talk about, so they huddled together and whispered to each other. "I've raised orchids for more than 20 years, but I've never succeeded in raising them." Wenwen looked at him sympathetically. "I've been raising them for 6 months. I didn't succeed in raising orchids in a pot, and I can't raise them outside either. I'm going to raise them on the rooftop next time. Uncle Yu, do you want to come with me?" Wenwen invited him enthusiastically. "I think I must be raising orchids in the wrong posture." Siyu immediately agreed and praised him. "You're so smart. I've never thought of changing the posture to raise orchids." Siyu basically raised orchids in a pot and in the greenhouse in his courtyard. He suddenly felt that he must be raising orchids in the wrong way. If he changed the posture, he would definitely be able to raise orchids. Wenwen puffed out her chest proudly. Thus, the two of them happily agreed to go to the rooftop to raise orchids together. Fu Yun was speechless. Looking at their proud expressions, it was as if they had already raised orchids successfully. Yuan Xian sighed. They were indeed father and son. At this moment, their expressions were in sync. Time passed quickly and it was already time. Siyu and Yuan Xian tactfully said their goodbyes. Fu Yun suddenly thought of something and said, "Let's drink a bowl of mung bean soup first." The mung bean soup in the kitchen was already cooked. Fortunately, they had planned to drink a portion for the three of them tomorrow, so they cooked more. Otherwise, there wouldn't be enough to share. Fu Yun took out 6 bowls and scooped out a bowl full of mung bean soup. Yuan Xian and Uncle Gua each took 2 bowls out. When there was only 1 bowl left, she was about to pick it up, but Siyu had already picked it up and carried it out first. In the end, Fu Yun didn't take anything and walked out empty-handed. Then, she went to call the driver, Xiao Wu, who was standing outside. After Xiao Wu came in and put down the things, he considerately stood outside and left them to talk in the house. The 6 of them sat at the square table with a bowl of mung bean soup in front of them. It was rare for it to be so lively. Wenwen sat on her exclusive high stool and looked around. She was in a very good mood and tiptoed. He saw that there was only so much mung bean soup in his small bowl, and it wasn't full yet. Then, he looked at the others and saw that their bowls were all full. He pouted and said in a childish voice, "Mummy, I want a big bowl full." Fu Yun said, "Your watermelon stomach can't hold it anymore." "Yes." Wenwen lifted her shirt. "Mummy, touch it. It's gone down." Fu Yun reached out and touched it. "Yes, it's gone down a little. It's just enough to hold what's in your bowl." Wenwen. He was about to cry. Siyu looked at this and that. Then, when Fu Yun wasn't paying attention, she scooped a small spoonful of the mung bean soup in her bowl over. Wenwen's eyes instantly lit up. She smiled happily at Siyu. Yuan Xian happened to see this and cursed in his heart. What a scheming dog. Siyu scooped a little bit over again. The third time, Fu Yun caught him red-handed. Fu Yun. She didn't see any increase in Wenwen's bowl, so she didn't care. However, she still said, Wenwen has eaten enough tonight. You can't eat anymore. Otherwise, your stomach will hurt. Siyu lowered his head and acted as if he didn't do anything. Wenwen also quickly picked up the small spoon, afraid that her mother would throw it away. Wenwen used the small spoon to scoop up the mung bean soup at the bottom of the bowl. It was already cooked and blooming. It was soft and sticky, sweet and super delicious. Fu Yun casually glanced and saw that Siyu was drinking the mung bean soup. He ate the mung bean soup first, then drank the soup in one gulp. He didn't stir the soup and eat it. She looked at Wenwen and then looked at Siyu. She thought to herself, no wonder this little guy liked Siyu so much. Their little habits were similar and their temperaments were congenial. After drinking the mung bean soup, Siyu and the rest left. When they walked out, Siyu saw that there were so many orchids outside and was a little envious. However, on second thought, he was also someone who had orchids. Soon, he would be planting flowers with Wenwen. Siyu suddenly felt that these flowers were no longer attractive to him. These 2 days, he had been so occupied by Wenwen's matter that he didn't even think of watching the live broadcast and seeing his son with orchids. He secretly made up his mind to watch the live broadcast tomorrow. The car drove away from the entrance of the flower garden. In the car, Yuan Xian said to Siyu, I finally know why you didn't have any doubts at all. Siyu raised his eyebrows. Other than looking different from you, Wenwen's actions are 100% similar to yours. Siyu felt proud when he heard this. How could his son not look like him? I'm 100% sure that he's your son now. Yuan Xian clicked his tongue and sighed. How did you not inherit all the good from your son? Siyu sneered. What's wrong with me? I obviously inherited all the bad from that woman. Haha, who would believe that? Although there were many similarities, this kid was 100 times more likable than his father. Oh yes, there's something I need to remind you of, Yuan Xian said. Young Master Chong is here too. Siyu looked over. Him? Yes, that's him. He's Fu Yunrua's ex-fiancé. Siyu snorted. Fu Yunrua had bad taste. How could she fall for a crazy man like Chang Zhuyu? She was already so old, yet she still acted like the domineering male leads in idol dramas. However, she was so domineering that it made people speechless and amused. Or did she like this style? Siyu thought, what kind of weird taste was this? It's good that he's here. We can settle this once and for all, Siyu said. Feng Shui Ruo hasn't done anything stupid, right? Not yet. Don't worry, I'll keep an eye on him. How could this woman sit still? Or was she up to no good? However, with Yuan Xian watching over him, Siyu was very relieved and did not mention this matter again. Even if it was just for Wenwen's sake, Yuan Xian would not let Fu Yunrua get hurt. The car first sent Siyu back to Mei's house, then drove to town. Yuan Xian and the driver booked 2 rooms in a hotel in town and stayed there temporarily. However, Yuan Xian thought that town was too far away from the village and it would not be convenient to travel back and forth. He had to keep an eye on the production crew and keep in touch with Wenwen. When the time came, he would see if he could rent a villager's house. Yuan Xian decided to discuss this with Sister Mei tomorrow. Chapter 38. It was a good night's sleep. Early the next morning, Siyu turned on the live stream and entered the live stream room to watch with great interest. He was concerned about Eleven's situation for a while. Then, he looked at the mutated boss and listened to the host's pleasant voice. Siyu suddenly arrived. He had always felt that Fu Yunrua's voice was vaguely familiar, and he faintly connected the dots. However, before he could think too much about it, there was a knock on the door. Siyu thought it was Aunt Mei, so he got up to open the door. However, a large camera lens shot over. Surprise! Good morning, Brother Yu. Wang Huaibei stood outside the door with the cameraman and said exaggeratedly, This is Brother Yu's morning photo. Hey, Brother Yu is so handsome when he just woke up. Siyu's hair was a little messy. He was wearing a short-sleeved shirt and loose pants, but it didn't detract from his good looks. Siyu had never expected the production team to do such a surprise attack. He frowned almost imperceptibly. What was the production team doing? Usually, variety shows would have scripts even if they were live streaming to ensure that they wouldn't say anything wrong or do anything out of line. If there was any surprise, the guest would be notified in advance. However, this time, no one had informed him. The first thing he thought of was Chang Zhuyu. The young master of the Chang family couldn't pressure him, so he came personally to the production team to mess with him. How confident must he be to believe that he could do whatever he wanted? Brother Yu, can we go in and take a look at your room? Wang Huaibei pointed inside and chuckled. The audience is looking forward to it. Siyu calmly made way for them to enter and take photos. Anyway, he was very private outside. If they could take photos of what they wanted, he would respect them. Xian Su heard the commotion in the room next door. He opened the door and walked in. He immediately said, "You guys are too biased. I want to protest. Why didn't you give me a surprise?" Wang Huaibei said, "Don't you have to give the surprises one by one? What surprise do I have?" Xian Su opened his eyes wide and looked at Wang Huaibei happily. Wang Huaibei pretended to be mysterious. "You'll know in the future." With Xian Su's interruption, the group quickly left Siyu's room. Wang Huaibei said to Siyu, "I'm here to deliver today's mission card." He handed the card with the program's logo to Siyu. Xian Su looked over curiously. What mission? The word harvest was written on it. Wang Huaibei didn't stay for long and quickly left with the program crew. Xian Su was worried about the words mission card. What did the production team mean by this? Siyu said meaningfully, "It's already the season of harvest." Xian Su only understood what Siyu meant when Uncle May and Aunt May returned. The rice grains in the village gradually matured and needed to be harvested. Uncle May and Aunt May had already gone to help another family in the village today. That family didn't plant a lot of rice. With the help of the 4 families, they finished harvesting the rice in one day. It was also the busiest time in the village. Everyone in the village was helping each other. A few families had discussed that they would harvest the rice from one family today and harvest the rice from the other family tomorrow. The more people there were, the faster they could harvest the rice. Their program for the next few days was mainly about participating in the harvest. In other words, they had to help the villagers harvest rice. The 4 groups of the program crew each had their own mission. One group was to raise chickens in the mountains, another group was to raise ducks, and the last group was to raise fish. Originally, Siyu and Xian Su's group was the most leisurely. However, from today onwards, they could no longer do their mission casually. Their main mission after today was to help the villagers harvest the rice. The rice fields in the village were almost all in the shape of hills. Each field was very narrow, so the harvesters couldn't be used here. They could only harvest by hand. The Mei family's rice harvest began on the 4th day. Fu Yun had brought Wenwen back the day before to prepare to help. It was a busy time in the village. Although she didn't know how to harvest rice and Uncle May and Aunt May didn't want her to do such hard work, she could help prepare 3 meals. Because the summer was too hot, the days were long and the nights were short. The villagers basically harvested rice early and late. In the morning, before the sun rose, they got up early and set off. When the weather was completely hot at 10 o'clock, they finished work and went home. After 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they started work again. They worked until the sky was completely dark before they went home. Early in the morning, Fu Yunrua made 2 baskets of steamed buns and steamed buns. At 8 o'clock, with the help of another woman in the village who was 5 months pregnant, she put everyone's breakfast and tea into the cart and pushed it to the fields. It was Wenwen's first time participating in such a big event. He wore his small straw hat and carried a small and exquisite basket on his back. He excitedly followed Fu Yun into the fields. Fu Yun arrived at the field and looked at the group of people working in full swing. She raised her voice and shouted, "It's time to eat." Fu Yun looked and saw that more than half of the rice had been harvested in 2 hours. This efficiency was amazing. Not long after, everyone stopped what they were doing and walked towards Fu Yun. Fu Yun immediately noticed 2 people who were particularly eye-catching in the crowd. There were only these 2 young and strong men in the fields. They were doing all the physical work of harvesting rice and carrying rice. Even though Siyu and Xian Su were wearing straw hats and ordinary clothes, they were still the most dazzling existences in the crowd. Fu Yun looked around them and did not see any live broadcast equipment. She was puzzled. Wenwen stood beside Fu Yun and said like a little adult, "Uncle, it's been hard on you. Granduncle, it's been hard on you." Her cute voice was so sweet that it reached their hearts. They laughed happily. Wenwen, it's been hard on you too. Wenwen shook her head. Mom, it's been hard on you too? Yes, yes. The villagers were not so particular. They wiped their hands and went to get the steamed buns. Ruoruo's culinary skills are really good. These steamed buns are delicious. Yes, it's even better than the ones sold in town. Fu Yun smiled. I filled 2 big pots of tea. If you need it, come and fill them up. Working on such a hot day would consume the most tea. Okay. Xian Su stood beside Fu Yun and ate without caring about his image. After a few days of being exposed to the sun, his image of a handsome young man had long collapsed. He had turned into a handsome man with wheat-colored skin. Fu Yun poured him a cup of water with a clean cup and asked, "Are you still broadcasting the program?" It was really hard work. Fu Yun sympathized with them. It was probably the first time they had done such hard farm work in their lives. Xian Su waved his hand. It's been stopped for a long time. It was only filmed a day or 2 ago. Originally, this was no longer part of the program. Then what about you? Brother Yu and I are here to help. Xian Su grinned. His neat set of white teeth was especially eye-catching against his tan skin. Brother Yu felt that they had disturbed the Mei family for a long time. Now that their family was so busy, he would feel bad if he did not help, so he took the initiative to help. Anyway, they had already learned how to do farm work for 2 or 3 days. It would not delay anything if they worked for another 2 days. So when Brother Yu mentioned it, Xian Su immediately agreed. Fu Yun was immediately full of admiration. Not long after, Siyu walked over. He looked at Fu Yun and touched Wenwen's little straw hat. "Uncle Yu." Wenwen shouted happily. Her eyes were sparkling. "You've worked hard." "It's not hard." Siyu's lips curled into a smile. Fu Yun hurriedly poured him some water and asked him to take the steamed buns that she had specially set aside. Siyu's skin did not obviously darken. Perhaps it was because he was not fair-skinned, so it was not particularly conspicuous. He was wearing a short-sleeved shirt and trousers. The moment he approached her and reached out to take the steamed buns, a vigorous heat attacked her. Fu Yun instantly felt the temperature rise. She could not help but take a few more glances. Siyu had a towel around his neck. Sweat kept flowing down his face. He was dressed very simply. Fu Yun felt even more amiable. She did not expect the great best actor to be so casual. Siyu drank a full cup of water first before starting to eat the steamed buns. "Young man, not bad. You're young and strong." The villagers were very friendly towards Siyu and Xian Su. They spoke much more casually. Xian Su looked at Siyu's firm muscles and was extremely envious. He actually had those too, but compared to Siyu, he was instantly weak. Seeing that they were eating happily, he was even happier. The villagers' tanned faces smiled honestly. This year's harvest is good. The smiles on Uncle May and Aunt May's faces did not fade. Yes, we'll plant another batch in the second half of the year. We won't have to worry about our lives anymore. They chatted and ate breakfast quickly. Soon, they were full and continued to harvest rice. Siyu was left for last. At this time, he slowed down his eating speed and chatted with Wenwen. Fu Yun looked at the breakfast she brought. She brought a lot of food, but she was almost finished. There were only 3 steamed buns left. Fu Yun looked at Siyu, who was still eating with relish. If she did not count wrongly, he seemed to have eaten 5 steamed buns. Siyu finished the last bite and picked up another steamed bun. Wenwen watched from the side. Although he was full, he wanted to eat again when he saw Uncle Yu eating so happily. Siyu saw Wenwen's thoughts and tore off a small piece to feed him. Wenwen narrowed his eyes and ate with relish. It was sweet. Siyu looked as if he was ready to eat the rest of the steamed buns. Fu Yun watched as he finished eating. She thought to herself, "Is his appetite so big?" Hence, she asked worriedly, "Mr. Yu, are you full?" "I'm full." Siyu stood up and drank half a cup of water again. Then, he patted Wenwen's head and said to Fu Yun, "I'm going to work." Fu Yun was not in a hurry to leave. After she packed her things, She immediately went to help Siyu and the others harvest rice. Wen also played and went to work. He followed the older children to harvest rice in the fields. Rice would sometimes fall from the harvested areas in the fields. The children's fun was to harvest rice in the fields after the harvest. Of course, the adults did not have any other requirements for the children. They picked up the rice and played with it. When one was very happy with this task, after filling the small basket, he happily ran to Fu Yun and Siyu to show it to them. After receiving praise, he proudly handed the rice to them and continued to harvest rice. When it was 10 o'clock, everyone went back together. Uncle May and Aunt May's family had a lot of rice. It took them 3 days to harvest all the rice. Fu Yun made a big pot of mung bean soup every day. She drank it at noon and at night. In the morning, she went to deliver breakfast and help out. After the rice was harvested, it was not finished. They still had to dry the rice. Because there was a lot of rice, they transported a few big bags to the old house to dry on the ground. The children at home also had a task. They had to be at home from time to time to dry the rice. They also had to pay attention to the changes in the weather. The weather in summer was changeable. 1 minute, the sun might be high in the sky, but not long after, dark clouds would press down. If they did not pay attention, they might not be able to harvest in time. The rice at the old house had been exposed to the sun for 2 days. It seemed that they would be able to harvest soon. Fu Yun was making pastries in the kitchen. Recently, everyone was busy and tired. Fu Yun wanted to make some delicious food to reward them. She learned a lot of skills from the internet and could already skillfully pinch pastries in the shape of small animals. When one was playing under the shade of a tree, suddenly, he pricked up his ears and heard someone shouting outside. When one looked up, the blue sky and white clouds had unknowingly been replaced by dark clouds. He immediately ran into the house with his short legs. "Mom, it's going to rain." When Fu Yun heard this, she quickly walked out and looked at the sky. It seemed like it was going to rain. The villagers outside reminded them that it was going to rain very clearly. She quickly went to harvest the rice. Wen also took his small broom and helped to clean the rice. Not long after, the courtyard door was suddenly pushed open. Siyu walked in. He looked into the courtyard and immediately took over the work from Fu Yun. Fu Yun wiped her sweat. She did not have time to say anything. She quickly took a basket and a bag and hurriedly packed the rice. The heavy rain came quickly and quickly. They had just packed all the rice. There were still 3.5 bags of rice that they had not carried back to the house when bean-sized raindrops started to fall. Fu Yun was anxious. She quickly carried the half bag of rice with both hands and quickly walked towards the house. She walked too quickly and did not look at where she was going. She tripped on a protruding ground and instantly lost her balance and fell forward. Fortunately, she was caught at the crucial moment. Fu Yun did not fall down in a sorry state. Before she could react, her hand loosened and the heavy bag was taken away. When Fu Yun looked up, Siyu had already walked into the house with a bag of rice in each hand. Fu Yun's mind flashed. She seemed to have been hugged just now. It couldn't be that she was hugged, right? Siyu was trying to pull her up. If it wasn't for his help, she would have fallen. Wen ran out of the house and asked with concern, "Mom, are you all right?" He saw the scene just now and was very worried. "I'm fine." Fu Yun saw that there was nothing to bring in from outside. She hurriedly held Wen's hand and entered the house. At this time, it was already raining heavily. The sound of rain hitting the tiles could be heard clearly in the house. Fu Yun Ruo liked to hear this kind of voice. It gave her a feeling of peace and tranquility. "Luckily, you came over to help." Fu Yun Ruo saw that Siyu was sweating and handed him a tissue to wipe his face as she spoke. If not for Siyu's help, she and Wen would not have been able to collect the rice in time. If they were wet, they would have been exposed to the sun for 2 days for nothing. Siyu said, "Uncle May, Aunt May, and Xian Su are over there. So I came over here." Fu Yun was relieved when she heard that. There were 3 people over there, so they should have collected the rice. Wen felt her neck and hands itchy. She could not help but scratch with her hands. Fu Yun saw this and hurriedly stopped her. "You can't scratch with your hands." Wen acted coquettishly and said, "Mom, it's itchy. It'll be fine after you wipe it with a towel." Fu Yun brought Wen to the bathroom. The rice dust would cause the skin to itch when it touched the skin. It would be fine after wiping it with a wet towel or taking a bath. With this thought, Fu Yun also felt that her hands and neck were a little itchy. The bathroom was in the kitchen. Fu Yun brought Wenwen in and wanted to help him wipe his body. Wenwen saw his small bathtub and said coquettishly, "Mom, I want to take a bath," Fu Yun said. "You can just take a bath. Why do you need to take a bath?" "No, Mom." Fu Yun could not stand Wenwen's pestering. In the end, she filled the bathtub with hot water and mixed it with cold water. Siyu, who had walked over, took the bathtub from her hands and said, "Let me do it." Fu Yun looked at Siyu and saw that Wenwen was already circling around him. She could only say, "Then I'll have to trouble you." She hesitated for a moment and continued, "If you don't mind, you can also use Wenwen's towel to wipe yourself." Fu Yun knew how uncomfortable it was when the rice dust touched the skin. Siyu responded. Fu Yun saw that the two of them were getting along well, so she did not bother about them and continued to make pastries in the kitchen. Not long after, Fu Yun heard the noise they were making. It was very clear through the wall. Wenwen's laughter did not stop. Occasionally, she could hear Siyu's low laughter. She did not know what they were laughing about. With this thought, Fu Yun's lips curled up into a smile. Wenwen and Siyu fooled around in the bathroom for a long time before they came out. Wenwen's little face was red. He sat on Siyu's neck and supported his head with his two chubby little hands. Wenwen laughed and said, "I'm going to hit the ceiling." He was so tall. If it were not for the old house's high structure, he would definitely hit the ceiling. However, although he could not hit the ceiling, he could hit the top of the door. Siyu brought Wenwen around the old house. Their speed was sometimes fast and sometimes slow. Wenwen's laughter almost broke through the roof and covered the sound of the rain. Siyu also had a smile on his face. His clothes were a little wet. It was obvious that he had gotten wet when he bathed Wenwen. Fu Yun did not have any suitable clothes for him to change into. It was still raining heavily outside. Seeing that he was having fun with Wenwen, she pretended not to see anything. Taking advantage of the free time now, Fu Yun invited Uncle May, Aunt May, and Xi and Su over to have dinner together. When Yuan Xian heard about the commotion, he rushed over from the town and brought Uncle Guo along with him. Yuan Xian brought fish and various kinds of meat from town. Uncle May and Aunt May generously slaughtered a big rooster and a duck. Fu Yun, Aunt May, and Uncle May were in the kitchen and in charge of cooking. Uncle Guo, Siyu, and the rest were outside with Wenwen. As the only child, Wenwen was the most popular. She was teased by the adults until she could not stop laughing. Dinner was lively until 9 o'clock. Other than the driver, Xiao Wu, all the adults drank. After dinner, Fu Yun felt a little dizzy. She was too happy tonight and could not help but drink 2 glasses of wine. Now, she was drunk. As for Wenwen, she was already fast asleep. Her cheeks were flushed, and no one knew what she was dreaming of. Her small mouth was open, and she would occasionally let out a laugh. Fu Yun resisted her sleepiness and hurriedly went to take a shower. Then, she lay on the bed and instantly fell asleep. That night, it could be said that everyone slept very well. At this moment, the internet was not calm. After midnight, a post suddenly appeared and exploded with night owls. Did everyone feel that this Miss Sangmu looked a little familiar? Did she look like a vicious stepsister? The netizens still had an impression of Miss Sangmu. Not long ago, everyone was still licking her face. The topic was trending for 2 days before it died down. Everyone clicked on the post one after another and saw that the original poster was voicing his own conjecture in a questioning tone. The netizens were puzzled. Who was he talking about? Why didn't they know? What vicious stepsister? Miss Shen? Then, many related posts sprung up like bamboo shoots after a rain and quickly dominated all the major social media platforms. The netizens realized that something was wrong. It was as if they were being targeted. Suddenly, a lot of specious news appeared. Many insiders said that this was a joke in the circle. A good-for-nothing rich young lady with a vicious temper. The rich madams in the circle all looked down on her. The real socialites also did not want to play with her. The netizens were puzzled. What they described was completely different from what they knew. Was there a misunderstanding? A village fairy from a remote area was a rich young lady from some family in the capital? What kind of joke was this in the middle of the night? Although some netizens had their doubts, The discussion section was quickly led by a voice and slowly changed direction. Not long after, a photo of a woman with heavy makeup appeared in the trending topic. Her eyes were filled with hatred and resentment. In an instant, the internet was filled with photos of Fu Yunruo. Chapter 39. Fu Yunruo was woken up by the incessant ringing of her phone. Before she opened her eyes, she reached out to grab her phone. Hello? Fu Yunruo sat up and turned around to look at her son, who was not woken up by the commotion at all. She turned around and walked out of bed, yawning silently. Ruru, you've been tricked. Tiantian's angry voice sounded. Oh. Fu Yunruo went to the table to pick up the kettle and poured herself a glass of water. The warm water soaked her throat, and Fu Yunruo felt that her thirsty throat was a little better. Tiantian quickly told Fu Yunruo about what had happened on the internet. She did not sleep last night because of this matter, and she was so conflicted that her hair fell straight out. Tiantian was a pure night owl. She was active at 11 or 12 o'clock. When the topic related to Fu Yunruo popped up on the trending searches, she noticed it. At first, she thought that Fu Yunruo's alias had been exposed, but when she clicked on it, she saw that it was all bad comments. She sensed that something was wrong and quickly contacted the people in the studio to suppress the negative comments. However, no matter how they suppressed it, the news still emerged from all directions. It was Tiantian's first time dealing with such a large-scale organized and planned water army activity. She panicked for a while before launching an orderly counterattack, but she clearly felt that the situation was not optimistic. She wanted to contact Fu Yunruo, but she remembered that she was sleeping at the moment. If she was woken up, she would not be able to sleep well. Moreover, this was the public relations responsibility of the studio, so they could settle it. She and the people in the studio fought online for an entire night, but this clarification did not have much effect. Their voices were drowned out in the sea of internet, and the public opinion was almost one-sided. After dawn, Tiantian could not help but call Fu Yunruo. Because the person involved was a popular female celebrity with more than 50 million fans. After her fans left the scene, Fu Yunruo instantly became an existence that everyone on the internet hated. If Fu Yun was at a disadvantage, she would be at a disadvantage because she did not have many fans to speak up for her. 2 days ago, those fans were at most passers-by. If they did not know Fu Yun well, they would be easily misled. If her identity in the live broadcast was announced, the public opinion would not be so one-sided. One had to know that Fu Yun was also a live broadcast host with tens of millions of loyal fans. Tiantian said a lot and felt Fu Yun's calmness. Only then did she calm down a little. Ruoruo, why aren't you worried at all? It's fine. Don't worry, it won't affect me. Fu Yun was already awake at this time. Her head was still a little groggy, perhaps because she had not drunk for a long time. She had only drunk 2 glasses, but she already had a hangover. After a moment of silence, Tiantian felt that Fu Yunruo didn't seem to take the things on the internet to heart. She felt relieved and asked carefully, Ruoruo, is what the internet said about your background true? You're the real eldest daughter of the Fu family? After Tiantian extracted the information on the internet, she was really shocked. She did not expect her boss to have such a complicated background. For a moment, her impression of Feng Shuiruo fell to the bottom. Tiantian was the assistant assigned to the live broadcast room by Panda streaming platform at the beginning. After getting familiar with each other, she thought that Ruoruo was a dusty pearl that the platform had dug out from the corner of the mountain. After meeting her later, Tiantian always felt that her temperament did not seem like she was raised in the mountains, but she did not ask much. In the end, she was the eldest daughter of a rich family. When she thought about how she lived in a remote mountain village with her child, and the messy information revealed on the internet, Tiantian had already imagined a big drama. She doted on Ruoruo even more. How badly had she been hurt in the past that she had to live in a remote place with a different name? Fu Yun did not know Tiantian's inner thoughts. She confessed to Tiantian, if you ask me if I'm President Fu's daughter, if I'm Feng Shuiruo's stepsister, if I've snatched a man from Feng Shuiruo, and if I often go against Feng Shuiruo, then yes. Tiantian's heart ached even more when she heard this. Ruoruo, don't be sad. We all believe in you. Those things are in the past. The future is worth looking forward to. Tian Tian comforted Fu Yun for a moment, then said in an excited voice, "Don't worry, we will never let them hurt you again." Fu Yun was confused. What was Tian Tian thinking? Why was she so excited? After hanging up the phone, Fu Yun hesitated for a moment, then wanted to look at the comments on the internet. She opened the social media platform. After looking at it for a while, she knew that Feng Shui Ruo was behind it. Her topic was still firmly on the hot search list. When she clicked on it, the comments were foul, especially after Feng Shui Ruo's fans also came down. Snowball is here to take a look. I heard that this is the woman who bullied my Shueshurua since she was young. I heard that this woman is shameless and wants to snatch a man from Shu. That's it? Little fairy? I'm going to laugh my head off. These comments were considered good, but most of them were insults and personal attacks. Fu Yun took a look and felt that it was unbearable to look at. She could not imagine that there would be people who could speak in such a dirty way. Fu Yun Ruo glanced at it and didn't continue looking. Although Fu Yun did not care, her mood was still slightly affected when she saw that she was being attacked wantonly on the internet. However, that was all. After turning off the internet, no one knew each other. She had once thought of the worst situation she would face. The current situation was not the worst. She was mentally prepared. Fu Yun saw that it was getting late, so she went to the kitchen to make breakfast. She had just finished washing the rice and put it into the pot. Just as she pressed the timer, her phone rang again. Fu Yun took the phone and saw that it was a call from Qi Weicheng. As soon as the call connected, Qi Weicheng's concerned voice was heard. "Yun Ruo, are you okay?" Fu Yun heard Qi Weicheng's concerned greeting and smiled slightly. "I'm fine. I saw the news on the internet. Yun Ruo, don't worry. We all believe in you." "Thank you." After Fu Yun hung up the phone with Qi Weicheng, she received calls from some of her business partners who had seen her before to express their greetings. In the past 3 to 4 years, she had unknowingly made many friends. There were also many old friends introduced by Uncle Gua and elders who were very close to her. They had all met Fu Yun before and had kept in touch all these years. They were all active users on the internet. Even if some of the elders were not young anymore, they were still keeping up with the times. Now that news about her was everywhere on the internet, how could they not see it? Furthermore, some of her friends, such as Qi Weicheng, were in the entertainment industry and were even more sensitive to these things. Fu Yun's heart was warm. The gloominess caused by the malicious comments in the morning had all disappeared. Wen rubbed his eyes and walked out. "Mom?" His black hair was curled up like a strand of hair. When his little head shook, the hair that was standing up also shook. Fu Yun carried Wen and leaned over to kiss him with a face full of smiles. Wen instantly woke up. Mom was so enthusiastic early in the morning. He was so shy. Wen held his chubby face and leaned over to kiss his mother's face. Then, he could not help but laugh happily. The mother and son played for a while, then went to wash up and eat a delicious breakfast. Last night, there was a lot of fish and meat. This morning, it was lighter. Fu Yun only cooked a pot of sticky porridge. However, the rice was homegrown. Even if it was porridge, it still had a strong rice fragrance. There was no need to add sugar, and it had its own sweetness. Today's weather was sunny, and the ground was quickly dried by the sun. Fu Yun prepared to carry the rice out to continue drying it. Aunt May and Uncle May came over to dry the rice. They did not need Fu Yun's help at all. It was done very quickly. "Ruo, you've been tired these days. Have a good rest," Aunt May said with heartache. Fu Yun had helped them a lot these days. They did not have to worry about anything other than the matters in the field every day. Aunt May looked. Ruo had lost weight. Fortunately, he did not turn black. "You guys are the ones who have it harder," Fu Yun said. "We're all used to it." Aunt May waved her hand. "It rained yesterday. It definitely won't rain today. These grains can be stored in the warehouse after 2 more days of drying." Fu Yun smiled and nodded. Aunt May and Uncle May did not stay for long before they left for the fields. Although the rice was harvested, the work in the fields was not done yet. It had rained yesterday, so they needed to turn the rice pile over to dry it. Otherwise, they could not start a fire. When one was called by the children, not long after, he could not help but run out. Today, they changed to a new amusement ride. There was a family in the village who was preparing to build a new house. They transported a pile of sand and placed it on the ground in front of the house. This pile of sand became the children's new playground. Children naturally liked sand. They could play with sand for an entire day and not get tired of it. Many children even brought their own toy shovels and small buckets to shovel the sand and store it. There were even children who ran up and down happily and rolled all over their bodies in the sand. Wenwen also unconsciously played until his cheeks were red. When he stepped on the fine sand, his small feet sank into it. It was soft and very comfortable. He ran up and down and stepped on it happily. Siyu was originally passing by a village path not far away. When he heard the laughter of a group of children, he keenly sensed that Wenwen's voice was among them. Thus, he turned and walked towards the source of the sound. Not long after, he saw the group of children playing happily. He saw Wenwen at a glance. Her small face was smiling brightly. She was innocent and carefree. Siyu watched for a while before turning to leave. He was ready to find Fu Yun. He drank a little last night and slept a little soundly in the morning. It was rare for him to wake up a little late. He hurriedly ate some breakfast and went to film as usual. Unexpectedly, during the break, Exine Su, who was playing with his phone, suddenly exclaimed, "Sister Roro is on the hot search list." Exine Su was playing with his phone as he exclaimed, "What the hell? What's the internet talking about?" Then he looked at Siyu. "Sister Roro and Feng Shui are sisters? Brother Yu, when did you find out?" Siyu was speechless. He picked up his phone and saw the comments on the internet. Basically, the internet was dominated by the Internet Water Army and Feng Shui's fans. He couldn't see any comments other than these people, especially when Feng Shui suddenly posted a status 30 minutes ago, "Don't hurt my sister." This pushed the matter to a climax. Her fans felt even more indignant for their idol and attacked Fu Yun even more viciously. He frowned. What the hell was Yuan Exine doing? Didn't he tell him to keep an eye on Feng Shui? How could he let her cause so much trouble? Siyu got up and walked to a corner to call Yuan Exine. When the call connected, he immediately asked, "What's going on?" When Yuan Exine heard this, he immediately said, "You're talking about the internet. No problem, everything is under control." Last night, after drinking, he went home and fell asleep. His phone vibrated for half the night until it ran out of battery. He only found out about the news after he charged it and turned it on. Without Yuan Exine's orders, his subordinates didn't dare to act rashly. Hence, they only kept the situation under control and didn't do anything else. After Yuan Exine understood the situation, he immediately came up with the best public relations plan. Siyu clicked his tongue. "I told you to keep an eye on the internet so that there won't be any negative news. This way, it won't be so lethal." Yuan Exine said calmly, "The more negative rumors there are now, the better the effect will be when the situation turns around." From a manager's point of view, he knew very well what to do to maximize the benefits. We all know about Fu Yun's past. Overall, there isn't anything bad about her. The comments on the internet are the result of malice. As long as we tell the truth, rational people will be able to see who the real victim is. Yuan Exine thought about it. He had never seen a rich girl living a more miserable life than Fu Yun. Normal people might have preconceived notions, but a stepdaughter from an ordinary family who followed her mother into a rich family definitely didn't have a good life in a rich family. After all, strictly speaking, they weren't related by blood. On the surface, it was true that the first wife's daughter was bullying her stepmother and stepsister, but on the inside, the first wife's daughter was living a more miserable life than the stepdaughter. Yuan Exine couldn't help but pity Fu Yun. It was bad enough that she was teamed up by her stepmother and stepsister to torture her, but she didn't even have a good reputation. Instead, she helped someone else's reputation. Tragic. It was too tragic. Haven't you always disliked Feng Shui jumping around in front of you? Maybe we can take advantage of this situation to do something to her, Yuan Exine said. Even if they couldn't kill her, they could still make her suffer a great loss so that she wouldn't be able to jump around in a short period of time. Disliking Feng Shui was one thing, but it was also another. With such a good opportunity to attack their opponent, they wouldn't let it go. Siyu frowned in annoyance. Of course, he knew how to achieve the greatest effect, but he was unhappy to see Fu Yun being attacked like this. Deal with it as soon as possible. There are many ways to deal with Feng Shui. If they really wanted to investigate that woman, they would have a lot of dirt on her. Yuan Xian was surprised for a moment. He didn't expect Siyu to say that. It seemed that Fu Yun was quite important to Siyu. Yuan Xian thought that they had only known each other for a few days. Or was it just because she was Wenwen's mother? Okay, I'll deal with it as soon as possible. Yuan Xian regretted missing such a good opportunity, but since Siyu said so, he could only do as he was told. Siyu hung up the phone. He was a little hesitant. He didn't know how that silly woman would react when she saw the news. Would she be unable to take the shock? He imagined Fu Yun hugging Wenwen and crying if she couldn't take the shock, and Wenwen crying helplessly as well. He hesitated for a moment and still felt uneasy, so he decided to take a look. After Siyu watched the children play happily for a while, he prepared to leave. He didn't expect Wenwen to see him. Uncle Yu. Wenwen crawled out of the sand and ran towards Siyu. As she ran, sand fell from her body. Wenwen ran to Siyu's side and looked up at him. She asked cutely, Uncle Yu, aren't you filming the show anymore? Wenwen looked around and didn't see any cameramen or live broadcast equipment. Uncle Yu was the only one there. Siyu said, there's no need to film for now. Siyu bent down and lifted Wenwen onto his shoulders. Then, he walked towards the old house. He didn't mind that he was covered in sand. As he walked, fine sand fell onto him. Wenwen sat on the high throne. She tiptoed and looked around happily. Fu Yunruo was cleaning the house. Her long black hair was wrapped in a cloth. She was wearing an ordinary checkered shirt and trousers. Her trousers were rolled up to her calves, revealing half of her fair ankles. She took out the trash and dumped it in the trash can outside the house. Just as she was about to go back, she heard an excited voice behind her. Sister. Fu Yunruo turned around instinctively. Then, she saw a delicate woman in a light-colored knee-length dress standing behind her. She looked at her in surprise. Sister, it's really you. Feng Shui ran towards her with tears in her eyes. I've been looking for you for a long time. Why didn't you contact us? Even if Uncle Fu cares about you. Fu Yunruo saw the tears in her eyes. When she saw her surprised look, she felt a chill in her heart. She was indeed the best actress. Her acting skills were ingrained in her bones. Siyu walked over with Wenwen. Before they turned the corner, they heard Feng Shui's soft and weak voice from the other side of the wall. It was very clear. His expression changed. Just as he was about to turn and walk over to stand up for Fu Yunruo, he heard Fu Yunruo say indifferently, I can't afford to be called sister. Siyu stopped in his tracks. Why was her voice so calm? She didn't have a bad temper like the information about her. Wenwen was about to speak, but Siyu shushed her. Then, he held Wenwen in his arms and openly eavesdropped on them. He wanted to see how much Fu Yunruo had changed. From his previous investigation, Fu Yunruo seemed to be a hot-tempered person who would get angry when provoked. She was easily led by the nose. Now, she seemed to have some intelligence. Siyu wanted to see how Fu Yunruo would face the person who had bullied her so badly. When Wen's eyes darted around, he recognized the voice of that annoying woman. She knew his mother? Wen pricked up her ears and tried to listen to the sound. Sister, why are you here? Seeing that she reached out and wanted to grab her hand excitedly, Fu Yunruo waved her hand to avoid her. Feng Shui staggered back and looked at her with grievance. Fu Yunruo raised her eyebrows. According to the routine, there might be someone or some live broadcast equipment recording her. She wanted to see how her stepsister viciously bullied her stepsister. If it was the original owner of this body, she would have exploded from being teased. Unfortunately, she was the one standing here now. Fu Yunruo looked at her indifferently. Why am I here? Isn't it because of you and your mother? Why are you pretending? Feng Shui bit her lower lip. How can you say that? Even if there is a misunderstanding between us, you've misunderstood. There is no misunderstanding between us. Fu Yunruo smiled. Oh right, I haven't congratulated you yet. You've finally gotten what you wanted. You're officially together with my ex-fiancée, Chang Zhuyu. Feng Shui's eyes trembled. No, Fu Yunruo said slowly, you don't have to explain. I know, because he was my ex-fiancé, you couldn't help but restrain yourself from destroying the relationship between my stepsister and my future brother-in-law. My ex-fiancé had always pitied you. He felt bad that you had a hard time living in a wealthy family. He despised me for being rude to you and often called you a slut. In the end, he wanted to be with you and insisted on breaking off our marriage. Feng Shui's face turned pale. She was on the verge of collapsing and her eyes were filled with tears. Fu Yunruo comforted her. Don't be in such a hurry to cry. I don't mean to blame you. I still remember that you had tears in your eyes too. You were so weak, but you told my ex-fiancé that you were my brother-in-law and that we couldn't let my sister down. You asked my ex-fiancé to treat me well. When he was still my fiancé, you never crossed the line. I know that. After all, you're so kind. Why would you do something like snatching your brother-in-law away? Don't worry, I have nothing to do with him now. I saw on the internet that the two of you are a match made in heaven. I think so too. The two of you are really compatible. Congratulations. I'm not. You don't have to worry about me snatching him away. Oh, not only your fiancé, but also your position as the young mistress of the Fu family. Ever since your mother married into the Fu family with you, you are the young mistress of the Fu family. This is a marriage alliance between the Chang family and the Fu family. I heard that the outside world now thinks that you are the young mistress of the Fu family. Even your mother has become President Fu's first wife. What are you worried about? My late mother and I, the young mistress of the Fu family, have already given up their positions to you. I'll just plant flowers here and live the rest of my life peacefully. Why? Do you think that I'm an eyesore to you now? Do you want me to disappear from this world? Sister, how can you say that? Feng Shui said in pain. My mother and I have never thought of replacing you and my late mother. Then what you did was exactly what you said, Fu Yun said with a smile. You're really good at expressing what you think you are. The outside world is not completely blind. Aren't you the ones who slowly diluted my existence and replaced my position? Aren't you the ones who are subtly influencing others' perception? Now go outside and ask who the young mistress of the Fu family is. See what other people's first impression is. Fu Yunruo did not hold back and directly tore apart her face. No, I didn't do that. Feng Shui's pale face was covered in tears. I never said that. You don't have to say it yourself. All you need to do is to show an awkward expression, and others will follow your train of thought, and you will be a pure and innocent white lotus. Oh yes, I read online that your fans are disgusted by your name. I'm also disgusted by it. Why don't you change back to your original name? Fu Yun suggested sincerely. I think your original name suits you better than your current name, right? Fu Yun smiled. Feng Shuilian? Chapter 40. From the depths of Fu Yun's memory, before Mother Feng married into the Fu family, Feng Shui's original name was Feng Shuilian. Later, Mother Feng wanted her daughter to change her surname to Feng Shui. Even though she could not enter the household register, Fu Yun did not agree no matter what. Feng Shui was also very stubborn and did not want to change her surname. In the end, she settled for the second best and changed her surname to Fu Yun's. It was easy to tell that they were sisters. Fu Yun thought about it and felt very disgusted. On the surface, Feng Shui was very noble. If Fu Yun did not want to change her surname to Mother Feng, she also did not want to change her surname to Father Fu. Even when she changed her surname, she accepted it with an aggrieved expression. It was a request from her elders, and she looked very helpless. No wonder the original body's temper became more and more irritable. A soft knife was the most torturous. Feng Shuilian. When Feng Shui heard the name that she had deliberately forgotten, her expression changed. She looked at Fu Yun's indifferent and distant face. She clenched her fists and said bitterly, Sister, do you have to be like this? Feng Shui's face was pale and weak. Her lips trembled. No matter what, you are still my sister. Fu Yun looked at her and raised her eyebrows. My mother only gave birth to me. I don't remember having a sister. There's no third person here, so you don't have to pretend in front of me. Oh, how could I forget? You've fused the word acting into your bones and blood. You've been acting for more than 20 years, and your acting skills have long been trained to the peak. You're worthy of the title of Best Actress. Feng Shui lowered her eyes, and her lips trembled. Fu Yun, you evil woman. What do you want to do to Shuer? Chang Zhuyu suddenly appeared out of nowhere and roared at Fu Yun angrily. Then, he took Fang Shui into his arms tenderly. Chang Zhuyu glared at Fu Yun angrily. However, when he saw Fu Yun's appearance, his eyes flashed with surprise and amazement. Was this Fu Yun? This thought flashed through his mind. In his memory, Fu Yun was a hysterical, crazy woman. When he thought of this woman's evil nature, his gaze turned to disgust. Brother Chang? When Fang Shui saw Fu Yun, she was both surprised and happy. She suddenly thought of something and looked at Fu embarrassedly. She looked at Chang Zhuyu. She moved her body. She wanted to escape from Chang Zhuyu's embrace, as if she was afraid that she would agitate Fu Fu. Chang Zhuyu held her in his arms domineeringly, unmoved. Don't hurt Shuer anymore. Give up. I won't like you, he said with disgust. I only have Shuer in my heart. Where's Azaz? Where's Azaz? Where's Yun? Do you think everyone likes you just because you're rich? When Fu Yun saw how intimate they were, she felt that her eyes were tainted. Which eye of yours saw me hurting her? If you maliciously slander me, you'll have to pay for it. Of course. How many times have you bullied Shuer since you were young? Chang Zhuyu said in disgust. Oh. Fu Yun lifted her eyelids and said sympathetically, delusion is also a kind of illness. Don't hide it for fear of treatment. I know a psychiatrist who can take a look at you and treat your brain. Of course, you'll have to pay for it. What did you say? Chang Zhuyu was furious. He took a step forward. Fu Yun, this evil woman, dared to call him a lunatic? He was so angry that his nostrils flared. Fu Yun instinctively took a step back. She wondered if this scumbag was going to hit her since he couldn't win an argument with her. She lowered her head to look for a weapon beside her. She saw a wooden stick on the ground 2 steps away from her. She quickly walked over and picked it up. Just as she straightened her body, her vision blurred. A tall man was already standing in front of her. Fu Yun saw his broad back. She looked up and recognized Siyu. She heaved a sigh of relief. She lowered her head to look at the wooden stick in her hand. Then, she threw it away as if nothing had happened. She was actually a weak woman who didn't know how to fight at all. Siyu looked at Chang Zhuyu. His expression was calm, but his eyes were full of pressure. What are you trying to do? Wenwen also ran out. He stood in front of Fu Yun and opened his arms to protect her. He glared angrily at Chang Zhuyu and Fang Shui. You're not allowed to bully my mother. Wenwen was small but had a strong aura. He looked like an outstanding little guardian angel. When Chang Zhuyu heard the childish voice, he lowered his head and looked at Fu Yun. You have a son? He was shocked. He couldn't believe it. Who is that man? So you've been hiding here all this time? You're... Fang Shui exclaimed. Then, she realized that she had said something inappropriate and covered her mouth. Young Master Chang, who are you to question me? My ex-fiancé? Fu Yun deliberately emphasized the word ex-fiancé. She carried Wenwen and poked her head out from behind Siyu. Who is that man? Why don't you ask your beautiful and kind Shuer? Also, I don't want to be harassed by you. Please be more self-aware. Don't always appear in front of me. I feel disgusted. After speaking, Fu Yun carried Wenwen back to the courtyard. She closed the door but didn't lock it. Then, she leaned against the door to listen for any sounds. With Siyu around, she was relieved. She couldn't get rid of them, so she could only rely on Siyu. What do you mean? Chang Zhuyu was about to chase after them, but Siyu blocked his way. He narrowed his eyes and said coldly, Siyu, don't be so shameless. Chang Zhuyu hated Siyu so much that his teeth itched. No matter what he did, it didn't work on him. Those who went against him in the past, which one of them didn't end up in a miserable state and beg him to let them go? Yet, he was the one who met his Waterloo. Siyu stood there casually, but he didn't seem to be at a disadvantage in front of the domineering Chang Zhuyu. In fact, he seemed to be even more imposing than him. Young Master Chang, you must be joking. You don't even have the face yourself. Where did you get the courage to say that you're giving face to others? Fang Shui walked over and said, Brother you've misunderstood. We're just concerned about sister. Siyu said, I think respecting others is a basic act of courtesy. As a polite person, you naturally wouldn't say whatever you want to say and force your will on others, right? Ruoruo, I don't think I need to explain her meaning, right? I think you can understand her with your IQ, right? Feng Shui, Miss Lian? Siyu looked at Feng Shui with a half-smile. Feng Shui's expression changed. Siyu was obviously here, but she didn't know how much he had heard. Ruoruo? Fu Yun Ruo? What's your relationship with her? Chang Zhuyu asked aggressively. He looked at Siyu with even more hostility. It seems like I've overestimated your IQ. Siyu sneered. He thought to himself, if it wasn't for his inexplicable good luck, how could he survive in the business world with such a low IQ? He reminded him sincerely, although it's not easy to treat your brain damage, don't give up on treatment. Chang Zhuyu was so angry that he almost vomited blood. He couldn't help but throw a punch at him. A mere best actor actually dared to mock him? Siyu raised his eyebrows and took a step back to avoid the punch. Chang Zhuyu's posture was good, and his taekwondo was standard. However, in front of Siyu, who had undergone military training, he was just a weakling. Fu Yun Ruo saw that the scumbag actually dared to hit her. She couldn't stand it. She looked around the yard and saw a broom in the corner. She quickly rushed over to get it. Before she went out, she told Wenwen not to come out. Then she opened the door and rushed out. How dare you hit me? I'll kill you. Fu Yun Ruo saw that Chang Zhuyu was being stepped on by Siyu. She rushed over with the broom and hit him as if he was a cockroach. This scumbag had teamed up with that bitch to bully the original owner of her body. He had caused her to be in such a miserable state. How dare he appear in front of her to disgust her? Now, he even dared to bully her friends? Siyu saw Fu Yun Ruo, who was as beautiful as the bright moon and had an elegant temperament, transform into a violent woman. She wielded the broom with such vigor that he was so shocked that his feet loosened. Chang Zhuyu, who couldn't move, wanted to seize the opportunity to retaliate. However, Siyu reacted and exerted more force with his foot. He was instantly pinned to the ground. Not long after, Wenwen ran out with a small stick and rushed over to hit Chang Zhuyu's legs and buttocks. He saw that Uncle Yu was being bullied and his mother, who was a weak woman, ran out to help. How could he just sit there and wait for his death? He ran to the kitchen and found a thin and tough stick. He happily hit Chang Zhuyu. How dare you bully my mother and Uncle Yu? I'll hit you. Siyu was speechless. As expected of this woman, she didn't inherit the good things, but inherited the bad things. She couldn't even hit him where it hurt. To him, her strength was like scratching an itch. Feng Shui, who was standing not far away, seemed to be stunned by the scene in front of her. She didn't come back to her senses for a long time. When she came back to her senses, she hurriedly ran over. However, she was worried about the broom and stick. She said weakly, "Stop hitting him. Stop hitting him." She was so anxious that tears flowed down her face. Stop hitting him. Fu Yun Ruo saw Feng Shui Ruo and waved the broom in front of her. Feng Shui Ruo was shocked. She thought that she was really going to hit her. She subconsciously took a few steps back. However, her heel hit a rock and she lost her balance. She staggered a few steps and fell to the ground. Fu Yun Ruo was elated. She had pushed Wenwen once before. This time, they were even. Shui Chang Zhuyu saw that Feng Shui Ruo had fallen to the ground and was struggling to go over. Siyu took the opportunity to let go of him. Chang Zhuyu got up and staggered over. He helped Feng Shui Ruo up and hugged her. He asked with concern, "Shui, are you okay? Are you hurt anywhere?" Feng Shui Ruo frowned slightly. She seemed to be in pain. However, she comforted him. "I'm fine. You." Chang Zhuyu was so angry that his face contorted. He glared at them. He wanted to rush over and teach them a lesson, but Feng Shui Ruo stopped him in time. "Brother Chang, let's go." Feng Shui Ruo grabbed Chang Zhuyu's hand and looked at them timidly. Fu Yun Ruo glared back at her. What? Were they trying to see whose eyes were bigger? Chang Zhuyu glared at her for a long time. After Feng Shui Ruo persuaded him to stop, he reluctantly looked away. "Brother Chang, forget it." Feng Shui Ruo sounded like she was about to cry. She was afraid that Chang Zhuyu would be hit again. "Let's go." Chang Zhuyu was in a sorry state. His eyes were bloodshot, and he looked very scary. He turned to Siyu Ruo and said hatefully, "Just you wait." Then, with Feng Shuiruo's help, he left in a sorry state. Siyu sneered. He was indeed a brainless person. He couldn't do anything to him in the past. What could he do to him in the future? Even now, he still thought that he was an award-winning actor with no background and could be trampled on. They were finally gone. Fu Yunruo placed the broom vertically on the ground and wiped her sweat with one hand. She felt refreshed. The sky was so blue and the flowers were so beautiful. It felt so good to vent her anger. Then, she met Siyu's deep and cold eyes. Fu Yunruo was speechless. She looked down at her posture and instantly moved the broom to her front. She held it with both hands and regained her elegant and otherworldly aura. She pursed her lips and smiled. She lowered her eyes slightly and said, "Actually, I advocate peace. Hitting people is very bad behavior. I don't advocate using this method to solve problems." When one was still holding the Jingu Bang vertically on the ground with one hand and her other hand on her waist, she hugged the Jingu Bang with both hands and looked up happily. Mommy is a gentle and kind fairy who loves world peace. Fu Yunruo smiled and praised Wenwen. Baby is a smart and cute fairy. Wenwen raised her chubby chin proudly and reminded her, "I don't like to hit people." Yes, yes. Baby is also a fairy who loves world peace. Hee. Siyu, who was listening to the mother and son praising each other, was speechless. He held his forehead. Their words were too unconvincing. After chasing the bad guys away, Wenwen, Fu Yunruo and Siyu entered the house. Fu Yunruo poured tea for Siyu. "Thank you so much for what you did just now. Otherwise, I wouldn't know what to do." "Oh yes, he didn't hurt you, right?" Fu Yunruo looked him up and down with concern. Although Siyu had already subdued Changzhuyu when she came out, what if he had been hit during the fight? Siyu felt a little uncomfortable under Fu Yun's scrutinizing gaze. He coughed softly. "I'm fine. He can't hurt me." When one hugged Siyu's thigh, "Uncle Yu is so powerful. Uncle Yu is tall, strong, handsome, and invincible, the most powerful god of war." Siyu was instantly comforted by this little bootlicker. He said modestly, I'm just a little bit more powerful." Then she praised Wenwen. "Wenwen is a brave, smart, and adorable little boy. You know how to protect your mother." The little boy, Wenwen, proudly stuck out his little belly and laughed happily. "Mom, who are they?" Wenwen recalled what he had heard and asked with concern. His mother was actually Feng Shuiruo's older sister. He was extremely shocked. He had always thought that his mother was at most from a well-off family. He didn't expect her to have such a relationship with Feng Shuiruo. Fu Yunruo didn't want to tell Wenwen these annoying things. He just wanted to enjoy life. Wenwen, when you see these people in the future, just ignore them." Wenwen pursed his lips unhappily. He felt that his mother was hiding something from him. He was very worried. That woman, Feng Shuiruo, was bad and not to be trifled with. Even though she was still young, he believed that she must have been rotten to the core. His mother was so innocent. She must have been bullied badly. Wenwen thought of the possible scenario and was furious. He wished that he had been reborn 20 years ago. That way, he could protect his little mother. "Mom, tell me," Wenwen said coquettishly. He thought of the reason why his mother was here. She had also been reborn. She wanted to avoid death 2 years later, so she had been living here. Could it be that his mother was killed by that woman, Feng Shuiruo? Wenwen immediately thought of the reason why Feng Shuiruo targeted him in the future. It was because she recognized that he was his mother's son. After all, they looked so similar. So the reason why she had been suppressing him and not letting him stand out was because she was afraid that he would find out about the past and have the power to take revenge on her? Wenwen carefully recalled the first time he had met that woman. He only remembered that she had looked at him with disdain. He couldn't remember the initial scene. Wenwen's breathing became unstable. He had never doubted his background. He had never doubted that he had a relationship with them. At that time, he had believed the director's words. He had thought that he had been abandoned. His mother's murderer had always been right in front of him, but he didn't know. Even though he had been fighting with them in his previous life, Wenwen's eyes were bloodshot with hatred. He shouldn't have given up on his life so easily in his previous life. Even if he died, he would drag them down to hell with him. Siyu immediately noticed that something was wrong with Wenwen. He immediately shouted, Wenwen. Fu Yun also noticed that Wenwen seemed to have fallen into a trance. She was shocked and hurriedly carried Wenwen. Baby, what's wrong? Are you frightened? Fu Yun carried Wenwen and walked around while patting his back. Don't be afraid. It's okay. Wenwen is the best. She thought that Wenwen was frightened by what had happened just now. Although he had acted very bravely, he was still a child after all. It was normal for him to feel scared after the incident. Wenwen hugged Fu Yun back and buried his face in her shoulder. Mummy, Siyu looked at Wenwen and frowned unconsciously. He tapped his knuckles on the table, deep in thought. Fu Yun was afraid that Wenwen would think too much, so she didn't dare to hide it from him. She told him about their complicated background. She knew that her son was very intelligent and could understand the meaning of these words. There was a saying that goes, extreme wisdom is bound to get hurt. Fu Yun was afraid that he would think too much, so she repeatedly comforted herself that everything was fine. When Wenwen found out that the predecessor of Fang's enterprise was actually Fu's enterprise, she was even more certain that her mother had been killed for money. Only when his mother was no longer around could they rightfully take over the Fu family. He clenched his fists. This time, he would not let them have their way. After Fang Shui and Chang Zhuyu left Shanghe village, they did not return to the set. Instead, under the care of Fang Shui, they asked Chang Zhuyu's driver and bodyguard to send them to the hospital in town to treat their wounds. The bruises on Chang Zhuyu's body were all superficial wounds. With some medicine, he would recover in half a month. On the other hand, he had been punched in the abdomen by Siyu. Until now, he was still in so much pain that he arched his back. However, there was nothing wrong with him, and there were no visible wounds on his body. Fang Shui sprained her ankle, and it only hurt for a while. Soon, she was fine. Under Fang Shui's persuasion, the driver drove Chang Zhuyu out of town and to the hospital in the city for a checkup. Fang Shui wanted to accompany him, but she would rather not film the show, even if there would be rumors about her acting like a big shot. Chang Zhuyu did not want to affect her filming, so he insisted that she not accompany him. Recently, Fang Shui had no choice but to leave and return to the set. After she smiled and sent off the Chang family's driver, Fang Shui's face instantly darkened. It had only been 4 years. How did Fu Yun's temper change so much? In the past, she only needed to be slightly agitated to make her fly into a rage and do stupid things. Now, she was not agitated at all. Instead, she was so eloquent. She thought of Fu Yunruo's attitude towards Chang Zhuyu. There was no trace of love or reluctance. Did she have no feelings for Brother Chang? When did she become so close to Siyu? That man. While she was upset, a phone call came in. After Fang Shui picked up, a young voice said, "What should we do with the video?" Fang Shui said coldly, "Destroy it. The price will be doubled." Then, she hung up the phone. She wanted someone to inadvertently film her being bullied by Fu Yun to confirm the rumors online. However, she did not expect that she would not take the bait. Instead, she would mock her. The video was completely useless. She narrowed her eyes and revealed a trace of viciousness. Fu Yunruo. She would not give her a chance to make a comeback. The young man who was hung up on put his phone away carelessly. He sat in a secluded corner at the foot of the mountain and looked at the camera in his hand. He thought to himself, what a pity. This is a shocking piece of news. If he sold it, he would make a lot of money. He was tempted for a moment. However, he thought of that woman's methods. He had worked with her for so long. She was his financial backer. Moreover, she had something on him. Just as he was about to destroy the video, a hand suddenly reached out to stop him. The young man was shocked. He jumped up and looked over warily. He looked at the two people who appeared in front of him and tried to calm down. "Who are you?" "Don't be nervous, young man." The short and fat middle-aged man smiled. "Let's have a good chat. I don't think we have anything to talk about. I still have something to do. I'll take my leave first." He pressed the brim of his baseball cap and turned to leave quickly. However, his path was blocked in an instant. The messy news on the internet was still circulating. Originally, the people around Fu Yunruo did not know about it, such as Uncle Gua, Uncle Mei, and Aunt Mei. They did not go online and the news would not report these messy things. so they did not know about these terrible things on the internet. Therefore, Fuyu and Rua's life was not directly affected. However, it did not take long for them to find out because most of their children who were working outside called back to ask about the situation. Only then did the villagers find out about what had happened on the internet. However, they did not believe a single word that was said online that Fuyu and Rua was a vicious woman. After interacting with Fuyu and Rua for so long, how could they not see a person's personality clearly? Just like what their children had said, Rua was prettier than many celebrities and was even popular on the internet. Therefore, people were jealous and slandered her. The villagers thought angrily, "Why are those people outside so evil?" Just as the villagers were about to learn how to surf the internet from the young people and speak up for Fuyu and Rua, a video spread on the internet in the middle of the night and quickly became a trending topic. The video of Fuyu and Rua insulting Feng Shui Rua was circulating on various social media platforms. The passers-by who saw it said that there was indeed a reversal. There was too much information and they needed to take it slow. Feng Shui Rua's fans quickly emptied their bottles and occupied the trending topic. You don't have the ability to keep your man, but you blame others for snatching him away? In the world of love, the one who is not loved is the mistress. When Shueshui Rua and young Master Chang were together, they had already broken off their relationship. Shueshui is not a mistress. Shueshui is not a mistress. Some people are really disgusting. Why don't they take a look at themselves? However, the public opinion was not one-sided. Some people expressed sympathy for Fuyu and Rua. As for Feng Shui Rua's fans' comments, the passers-by said that their worldview was fucking destroyed. The netizens expressed one after another that it was no wonder they said that fans would be boiled over. If their idol could do such a strange thing as snatching her own sister's fiancé, it was not difficult to understand her fans' thoughts. They sincerely congratulated them for having such a good sister like Feng Shui Rua. Her worldview shocked my whole family. I sympathize with this little sister. A mistress is a mistress. No matter how she cleans up, she is still a mistress. Oh my God. The dog food I ate in the past is stuck in my throat. Is it expired, or has it gone bad? This is a pair of scumbags and sluts. The little sister is right. A scumbag and a slut. They are a perfect match. Congratulations to them for being together forever. Don't harm others. Because of this video, the public opinion on the internet was no longer one-sided. Many passers-by spoke up for Fuyu and Rua. However, there were also Feng Shui Rua's fans who tried their best to clear her name. The two sides were fighting fiercely. At this moment, there was a sudden update on the livestream platform. Did you team up to steal a child today? There was a lot of melons today. I ate them with relish. I never expected that I would eat them. I threw the melons when I was peeing. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.